Happy Tuesday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Special day for special week. Obviously, we got Breeders' Cup this week. And hey, most of the team is going to be traveling to Del Mar, beautiful San Diego. And so want to make sure we got content out for everybody. So we're gonna try and speed run through this stuff. We got, I don't even know, I think we 14 races we got to get through. We have some we have best bets, we have long shots, and we're going to try and get through each and every race, try and get you guys ready for this busy week. Obviously, we'll have more and more content as the week goes on. I have new equipment I'm going to be playing with, and so we're going to try and get some stuff going. But obviously, the real reason everybody is here is to watch me open a bottle of bourbon live, because that's what thing. And I actually had a hard time deciding what bottle to go with, and I picked up two, and two of probably my favorite, hard to find bourbons at this point, but my favorite kind of approachable, affordable, when they're not marked up. And I have a nice little bottle of E.H. Taylor here, which is kind of grayed out, and this was going to be my pick because this is probably my favorite, but I would be remiss if I didn't drink at least a little bit of my spoils from last year's Breeders' Cup, which is this lovely bottle of Eagle Rare from Alameda Liquor that our good friend Dave, Ryder Dave, sent me after I hit the get out in the group ticket with the Turf Pick 3 Turf Pick 4, actually, I believe it was. And he sent me this as a little thank you for making him a little bit of money on a share. Cheers, Dave, if you're out there. A little bit of Eagle Rare. I see PDT in chat. I'm pretty sure PDT is anti Eagle Rare, but he is a big proponent of E.H. Taylor. So shout out to PDT. I guess we're gonna go in order of least on stuff to most on stuff. So unfortunately, Matt is still hiding somewhere. So I'm gonna get Mr. Saratoga himself, Mr. Bellatoga here, Mr. The Jonathan Kinchin of the West, I guess we'll call him. I don't know. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, how you doing, my friend?
That could be taken a variety of different ways, and we'll just leave that right there. Things are going really well. I had to bust this one out from the mothballs. Of course, if you're unfamiliar with the gag, this was sent to me by the On the Wrong Lead guys after the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, only busted out for very special occasions. And this, a very special occasion that has merited no less than 80 some odd pages of printed past performances. I know I'm a caveman. I'm the absolute worst. People have hated me for far less. I'll just throw that out there. But really excited about this. I think there are a bunch of different places you can take stands, and it's the Breeders' Cup. You only need to be right once to have a really nice weekend.
And I guess we're going to go straight into a man who generally always has a really nice weekend, especially when Legos are involved. Mr. Caleb Knight. Caleb, in the third location that we've probably seen you in the last 2 weeks, and hopefully a more permanent location. And lo and behold, what is that in your background? But is that a Lego Mario?
Yes, it is. Yes, we are in a permanent location. Finally closed on the house. Had the movers come just like 2 days ago, so there is still junk everywhere. I literally just set up my office enough to do this stream like 2 hours ago. So I couldn't deal with the spotty Wi-Fi and the laptop and the Airbnbs anymore. So excited to be settled in and excited to talk some Breeders' Cup.
Yep, and obviously your foil in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge coming up here. Our good friend, Mr. Mark Capitan. Mark, how you doing, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing good. It's Breeders' Cup week, always an exciting time. Excited for tomorrow. Get to hop on a plane, see you guys tomorrow evening out in San Diego. Well, I know Andrew can't. I don't think can be there, but the rest of us will all be there, and it should
I'm
be.
not cool enough.
I mean, you're cool enough. It just didn't work out this year, and that happens, priorities and all. But no, out there should have a really good time. It seems like every time, like we've all never been able to coordinate making a Breeders' Cup at the same time, so it's nice that we'll all be there. And yeah, I'm excited, really, really, honestly excited for it. And the racing looks absolutely phenomenal. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and
great card.
I'm super excited to be going to California. I guess I've mentioned on probably every single piece of content we've put out. It's my first time going to California. So obviously first time going to Del Mar. Yeah, it's gonna be great. And finally, the man who made me late and only let me yell at ExpressBet for about 10 minutes today because he just took up all their time, Mr. Matt Carlson. Matt, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. They know what pays the bills. They gave their VIP customer a little more time. So they said, hey, this is a big loser right here. We need to figure out what's going on with him. So I took up half your time too. I saw you join actually. I was like, oh boy, group interview.
And I totally told them, I was like, I don't use your platform because it sucks. So that probably didn't help things. But
and you wonder why they didn't give you enough time.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we're just getting started here. Just kind of talked a little bit about our plans here, but we don't got a lot of time. I think Matt's got to fix his camera because I don't know about you guys, but he looks absolutely frozen in
It's
time
not
for
a
me.
bad screen grab though. It could be a
No,
lot
it's
worse.
not. It could be a lot worse, but
Which is funny because his sound was working perfectly fine, but for some reason this camera is locked up there. But we're gonna get right into it right here. All right, we got the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, yeah, I mean this is just a huge field like it always is every year. We get 12. We got 2 AEs. Obviously we just got entries. The draw yesterday, so. We're recording this early. It's Tuesday night. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of movement, a lot of different stuff with people kind of, scratching and things like that. Heck, at this point, I might not even be, up to date on who's scratched and stuff. But, we're gonna go through it. I had a real hard time with this race. So I'm curious if any of you guys had a kind of a strong feeling on here. I mean, I basically landed on the chalk in this race. The Akoro Siege, and it was really because I just didn't really like a whole lot else that was in here, and it's just not a real strong opinion of mine, and I'm going to have to definitely take a deep dive into some of these other Euros kind of coming across, and generally the Americans tend to do fairly well in the turf sprints, but any of you guys kind of have a strong opinion in this race?
I don't know that I've ever had a strong opinion in a two-world turf stakes.
Well, Caleb, Mark, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think there's a couple of really interesting Europeans in this race. You have both Asterius, the 2, and you have Ides of March, the 12, and then you also have Whistlejack, the 7. I think those are the major European players. But if you look at this race historically, it has not been dominated by Euros. They actually haven't really done that well. I think they're 2 for 16, if I remember the statistic right. So I actually, I think the most interesting horse for me is the 10, Governor Sam. You're getting 12 to 1 on the morning line. Horse has won 4 in a row. Horse has a ton of speed. You got Paco up, 5.5 furlongs trip. Totally perfect for this one. And if you're a time form person, Governor Sam has an advantage over everybody else in here. I think the Euros will probably take a lot of money just because people, think, oh, turf races, Breeders' Cup, you bet the Euros. And they tend to get overbet. I think Governor Sam is by far and away the most interesting horse in this field.
Mark, are you seeing what I have on my screen right now?
I see a 10 and a bunch of question marks.
Yeah. We know what Paco Lopez does. Paco Lopez has rated on precisely one horse in the last 18 months, and I had him at 59 to 1 in the 2023 Wood Memorial. We had to work that in somewhere. Isn't there a chance Paco Lopez just boots this horse to the front and it's a conveyor belt because nobody can rate?
Yep.
That's my only opinion. If that doesn't happen, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I was actually a little interested in the two AEs that were in here. I am, I think, a little concerned about obviously them being posted so far outside if they do draw in. But I mean, I definitely think the 13 and the 14 both have speed, have been able to sit a little bit off. I think Smash It especially is pretty interesting. So. Yeah, honestly, if one of those two draw in, they'll probably make some tickets. But I didn't really have much of a strong opinion here. Caleb, anything in?
Yeah, I am glad you picked on me because I disagree with Mark. I think his point about the Europeans not doing well in this race was true a couple of years ago when they first introduced the race, but they've actually dominated this race in recent history. They swept the Exacta last year and the Trifecta 2 years ago, or vice versa, I forget. But they've kicked our ass in this race the last 2 years, and this American crop feels even weaker than normal. There's no Wesley Wards in here. There's no real standout horses. I mean, the best American horse probably is Governor Sam. Paco Lopez, George Weaver. I mean, coming out of Monmouth and Colonial. I mean, he's fine. He's 12-1. He's going to make the lead and try to hold on. But I think the Europeans have this race pretty well wrapped up. If I had to pick one, I probably would go to Whistle Jacket, who I thought super consistent horse. It was second last out in the Juddmonte Middle Park to Shadow of Light. That horse came out to win the Grade 1 Darley Dewhurst out of that race and is allegedly heading toward the 2,000 guineas. So very losing by 4 lengths may look kind of rough, but Shadow of Light seems to be a really promising filly. So I think Whistle Jacket really fits in here. That 3 Morney he ran 2 back would be huge. So with that being said, I mean, I do think the Europeans win this race. I could probably just cast a net over the top 4, and if any one of them win, I won't be surprised. I think that Whistle Jacket maybe is the one at the best price that I would lean towards, but for me, it's probably some combination of Asterius, Big Mojo, Whistle Jacket, or Shareholder.
Yeah, and Cobb just mentioned Shareholder. He says he's probably taking a swing on Shareholder at 12-1. And honestly, like, the interesting about Shareholder, I think it might have been with Matt talking about the BC Mile earlier. It's interesting. Like, these horses that go from like Ascot to France and don't really run very well in France. Sometimes they kind of get overlooked because everyone looks at their last race and like, oh, well, clearly this horse didn't run real well. But I mean, Deauville always tends to be soft, right? Longchamp always tends to be soft, right? They can't get a ton of rain, and they're obviously going to get a different footing in here. So I think a horse like Shareholder could possibly kind of get lost on the board a little bit. Matt,
really quickly, just before we move on, Out on Bail is apparently out as of about 4 hours ago. So one of the AEs will be able to draw in. The other development, according to Dave Grenning, is that Non-Compliant, who would have been one of the favorites in the juvenile fillies, is also out. So adjust your programs accordingly.
Matt, we get you back?
Hopefully my video works, although
now you're frozen in the better spot, but why don't we'll
awesome.
We'll go ahead and was there anything here in the juvenile turf sprint you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably agree mostly with Caleb, right? It's not necessarily that Americans have dominated this race. I think Wesley Ward has dominated this race, and he ain't here. So I do think there's been a lot of buzz on a Coro Siege. I think him and Governor Sam duke it out, and probably if a 5 furlong race can melt, this might be it. They're both going to try and go out in 21 flat, and to me that reads like it's just going to set up for one of these Euros. So I think Asterius, and I actually like Magnum Force a lot, is probably showing my Hong Kong side to take horses with Australian pedigree on the bottom side. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I probably want to go to if this race falls apart. And I think Del Mar, even at 5 furlongs, has a tendency maybe to do that.
Was Del Mar where Belvoir Bay won? Or was that Santa
No,
Anita?
that was Santa Anita.
Probably the only turf sprint I've gotten right since betting turf sprint at the Breeders' Cup.
Didn't we all have no balls last year?
Oh yeah, no balls. Yeah, true. Good
Yeah,
point.
you haven't lived until you've done what I've done,
That's what,
which is lead chants from about several dozen people of yelling, "Come on, no balls! Come on, no balls! Come on, no balls!" It was great. Good time.
So I was watching the Breeders' Cup last year with my brother, and I've never seen a guy get so excited to hit on a group ticket as I did with my brother. And like I was like upset because like I was hoping to like hit for a ton of money. And like I forget, I think we ended up getting like 4 or 5 to 1 on the group ticket as a whole. But I was just like, man, like I wanted to hit for like 10 grand, and I only ended up hitting for like I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 grand or something split. But man, my brother was so fucking excited to hit that thing. It was great. The juvenile fillies here, going a mile and 16th on the dirt, and yeah, your morning line favorite in here looks to be Scottish Lassie at 5 to 2. Obviously, Immersive was the horse I think we talked about that is getting scratched, correct?
No, non-compliant.
Non-compliant. Sorry,
Your ears are non-compliant, apparently.
dude. My the 7 non-compliant is scratched. And honestly, this was one of the races where I think we kind of had some of our opinions here. Frozen Matt, I will go to you first. You had your long shot pick here on the 6, Otomina. Is it Shacho? Why don't you talk to us about it?
Yeah, I mean, you all said this is the race where you have opinions. This is probably one of the races where I don't have an opinion, other than I don't think any of these horses are all that good. And so to me, I wanted to go with a horse that probably hasn't tried the distance before in this 6, right? It's only gone 6 furlongs. If you look at it, though, it was favored over American Bikini that second race. And if American Bikini's getting all the hype and it's going to go off 4 or 5 to 1, and you're getting 20 to 1, 25 to 1 on this horse, I see Curlin on the bottom side. To me, that screams like this horse wants more distance. This horse could just be loaded. And I think, if it takes to those 2 turns, if it takes the longer distance, hey, if Japan is going to fire as big as I think they're going to fire on this Friday, I want the horse at 25 to 1, not the one at 5 to 1 for sure. So that's going to be my long shot play of this. I don't really like any of the favorites in this race. And so that's where my eyes are going. Just try and catch a bomb in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed with you. I ended up on what is a long shot in the form, and that's the 8 Noonie, which is a Bob Baffert horse in the West Coast. I looked overseas because I'm like, hey, like, is this horse going to be like 6 or 7 to 1? Like, is something messed up? I saw 14 to 1 still. So, maybe this is the one that gets kind of gets lost over there, but I'm just thinking track profile here, right? And we saw Del Mar be an absolute just, speed favoring track the entire summer meet, it seemed like. And this is a horse that has 5 furlong speed, 6 furlong speed, stretching out. Granted, last time in the Oak Leaf, finished second to non-compliant, but non-compliant's not in this race now, and that's a little bonus I just found out about. So it probably hurts my price a little bit here. They have 15 to 1 on in the book. I saw 14 to 1 overseas. You got to imagine that price comes down a ton with the scratch of a short price like that. So, love seeing Flavian Pratt get aboard for anybody. He's first call, and then you look at that work tab. I mean, this just screams like Bob wants this one out the gate fast, and they're gonna play Come and Catch Me If You Can. And at Del Mar, like I will take a nice long price on that type of play. So Noonie is my long shot play for the weekend. Guys, Andrew, I'll start with you. Any thoughts here on this race?
I like Noonie a little bit as well. I picked her second for a lot of the reasons you loved her. Josh, for the people, it's an E8. Can we get the 3 cherries on there?
Oh, absolutely. We'll go ahead. We'll toss those on.
Yeah, that's the Joshiest horse that has ever joshed right there. But I think there's plenty to like, especially if Del Mar remains a conveyor belt. Best piece of advice I can give you, watch the day and a half of races before the Breeders' Cup very carefully. If you think speed's holding, it probably is. Now, Noonie's my second choice. I went with American Bikini on top. You never quite know what a horse is beating in some of those overseas races, but I was blown away by the effort I saw last time out. It was going 7 furlongs, which is sometimes a tricky distance. And coming down the stretch, that horse's stride reminded me of one thing, and that's her father. She is a very smooth, easy mover that can pretty much do whatever the heck the jockey wants. And I think it's very interesting that with several Japanese riders in town, these connections enlist Ryan Moore. I think it's curious. I think American Bikini has a big shot to be a very, very nice horse. Russ chiming in with win, win, win. That's a heck of a pedigree for a horse selling for $1.8 million. You don't think you're getting a $1.8 million horse from win, win, win and a Union Rags mare. But Baffert has a tendency for finding these horses and getting the most out of them. I do think Nooney's got a big shot. American Bikini is my top pick. I'm against the horses that are likely to take a lot of money in this spot. Caleb, I'm going to steal your term. Number 3, Immersive, has had several candy-ass trips in the course of her career, including in the Alcibiades where, yes, she won, but I don't think she was overly impressive. In fact, I thought the runner-up was more impressive, and that's the horse they'll use as a backup. That's horse number 5, Quick Kick, who hasn't done a heck of a lot wrong to this point, has shown a lot of professionalism, and ran against a big bias last time out at Keeneland. First start going 2 turns, did not break well, was last of 7 going under the wire the first time, winds up needing to go wide, gets bumped around a little bit, makes a big move going around the turn, and just runs out of gas. I think if any late runner is going to move forward, it's going to be Quick Kick. So for that reason, I'm 9, 8, and 5 here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I'm not a huge fan of Immersive. I think Scottish Lassie has bounce written all over her in big, bold letters. Give me a little bit of a price here to kick off the late pick 4.
All right. Caleb, any thoughts here?
Andrew actually has pretty much the exact opinion I do in this race. I am not a Nooney believer, so I guess I'm a little different there between y'all. But the horse should get the lead anyway. But as far as American Bikini, Quick Kick, and Immersive go, I mean, we're pretty much aligned, so I don't really have much to add there. I'm also against Scottish Lassie. God, that's a tongue twister. Scottish Lassie as well. But yeah, I don't have much to add. I agree with Andrew.
Mark?
Yeah, so I guess I'm the one here that's disagreeing with everybody. The 2 horses I were on was Immersive and Lacara, the 3 and the 4. Immersive is undefeated. Sometimes horses get candy ass trips, but it seems that horses that get candy ass trips sometimes keep finding candy ass trips. You guys are saying Del Mar carries speed. Well, these are the 2 horses that are going to be on the front end, right? Or unless American Bikini clears. So I think he's going to be very forwardly placed, and I don't think it's Brad Cox, the Breeders' Cup. The horse is the coat, I think, top on time form, speed fig wise. The other horse I really liked was Lacara, who is a horse that, as they stretched this one out, they went from trying the 5.5s to the 7s. A horse jumped up, and then I thought that Pocahontas was a fairly decent effort, especially when the horse spotted the field quite a bit getting out of the gate. Hopefully, they've sorted the gate issues out, and this one breaks a little cleaner. And I think both those 2 are the most interesting players in this race.
Matt, before we move on, was there any other horse you wanted to highlight, or are you just going to stick with the 6?
The only other long shot I might want is Vodka with a Twist, which I don't know if anybody mentioned, but again, a horse that I saw kind of get a horrific ride by Mike Smith last out. I'm happy Arad is up now. Again, I don't know if that horse is going to take to a longer distance, but hey, at least showed some fight onto the line. So if you're going to play some long shots here, like I think I will, it's another one I'll probably slot in somewhere.
I will say the one thing I didn't like about Vodka with a Twist is that Irad's aboard, because if I have a speed horse on the rail, there aren't many jocks. I think big name jocks specifically, I'd rather have less than Irad Ortiz. That was really my only concern, because that was another horse I looked at. I thought, hey, I'm looking for speed, inside speed here. You look at that race 3 back where Pratt was aboard, and I mean, this horse, when it had 21-2 and went wire to wire, obviously over a muddy track, but came back in the Sorrento, kind of rated a little bit. Same thing with the Del Mar debutante. Had 5 furlong speed again on a sloppy track, and can't believe I'm going to say this, but we're actually might expect rain in Southern California this week, so maybe something to watch out for. I can't believe it's going to rain. The one time I go to Southern California, it might
That's
rain.
one of your guys' faults. I'm not sure which one.
Probably Caleb's, because Caleb
Yeah,
just
it's
brings the
probably
rain
me.
everywhere he goes.
The biggest rainmaker since Kazuchika Okada. If you know, you know.
Let's move on here to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. I was very much chalk eating here. I had a couple of bombs that I liked in the 12 Mayday Ready and the 13 Vixen, but I'm not going to talk too much on here because I did mention. Oh, never mind. I thought I misspoke, but Andrew, I'll let you go first here. Where did you land?
You said the magic words, which are, of course, Mayday Ready, a first ballot inductee into the Andrew Champagne Gambling Hall of Fame. This horse was pretty much single-handedly responsible for a very profitable Saratoga meet for yours truly, and has come back and has run in 2 stakes races, won them both, gets Frankie Dettori. Guys, if Chad Brown trained this horse, what price would we be getting?
Are you one of you guys going to answer that? Because I'm not going to answer that.
Like 8-1, 6-1.
Yeah, 8-1, 10-1.
Yeah, we're getting more than double that on this horse, and I am going to ride her until she throws me off, because this is a horse that has overcome a significant amount of trouble in her 3 career starts. She did not break well in her debut, made a big middle move, wound up just barely getting the nose down, won at Kentucky Downs coming from off the pace, which is not easy to do, and then has a very unlucky trip in the Jessamine. She was between horses the whole way around the racetrack, still managed to find a way to get the money. Frankie Dettori came back thinking he got beat and was planning on telling his trainer, Joseph Lee, listen, I think this one's got some talent. I'm still going to ride her in Del Mar. And then looked at the tote board and went, oh, we got up. Wow, cool. So I am absolutely using Mayday Ready in this spot. That's one of 2 A's for me. The one that's going to take a lot of play is number 1, Lake Victoria. All she's done is go 4 for 4 for Aidan O'Brien and gets Ryan Moore up. This one makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to tell you that there are a whole bunch of holes here. The biggest one is the distance stretching out from 6 furlongs to a mile, but she's 3 for 3 at 7 furlongs. She draws the rail. She's got some tactical speed. I can't tell you she doesn't make sense. The bomb that I'll have on a couple of tickets is number 9, Win, who stretches out to 2 turns and has a pedigree to absolutely love it. You're talking about a horse by Twirling Candy out of the Flame mare that went from 11th to 1st at Kentucky Downs. That's not easy to do. And I think if Kilwin winds up getting some pace in front of her, that she might be the one they have to hold off, certainly for some of those underneath slots. Has to step forward in a big way to win. But if you're playing exactas and tries and you're looking for a bomb to throw in those underneath spots, I think you can do a lot worse than Kilwin. 1 and 12 are my A's. I'll have the 9 on a couple of tickets. And if that one winds up rallying for all of it, I won't be totally knocked out of anything.
Caleb?
Yeah, for me, this race is pretty simple. I'm not trying to beat Lake Victoria. I think she is the most likely winner of the entire day on Friday. It's not all the time that Aidan O'Brien brings his A squad. There are some horses he brings to support the program or kind of have room on the plane. Some of his better horses he just tends not to ship at all over to America anyway. I was surprised to see he was sending Lake Victoria to run the Breeders' Cup here. I think she's really, really good. Clearly, she's undefeated. The last couple of Group 1s have been won by open lengths. I'm not worried about the distance at all. Kind of looking at that pedigree there. She's drawn inside. Should get a cozy trip. No worries about ground loss. I just think she's much, much much too good in here. I'm not trying to beat her at all. To comment on maybe Andrew's horse of Mayday Ready, I do think that's a horse I'd use underneath. Yeah, I think that's a good price, especially. And I did kind of see the same trouble he saw last out, and I thought that was a pretty nice run there late. So I like Mayday Ready underneath. I also kind of gave a look at the Chad Brown runner, Virgin Colada underneath, who is likely to be closing late, but probably isn't good enough to win. Another horse I might throw in underneath at a big price. But for me, this race kind of starts and stops with Lake Victoria.
Mark.
I'll keep it real quick. I don't see how Lake Victoria loses this. Watch her last race; it was absolutely freaky. I think she's very, very talented, and you're most likely winner on the day.
Mystery Man Matt.
Yeah, much the same. I think Lake Victoria wins this by open lengths. I do like Kilwin and the ability to kind of close, and I do like Virgin Colada, the Chad Brown horse that you should get 20-1 on, but you probably get 8-10-1 on because it's Chad Brown, just like you said. So,
yeah, and I mean, I have Lone A on Lake Victoria, like I said. Mayday Ready, I think, is in with a pretty long shot. I like the fact that she closed at Kentucky Downs and then came back and followed that effort up with a nice win at Keeneland. And, we can't let Matt DeSantis beat us with stats when this horse went from Kentucky Downs to Keeneland before coming to Breeders' Cup. So, I know he had some crazy stat about Kentucky Downs last out winners to Breeders' Cup. This one had a stop in between. So
it's that layover, the layover.
That is an Ed DeRosa stat. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I don't know. Matt probably believed it too. All the trouble he got on Twitter on Twitter for, besmirching the name of Kentucky Downs. So, the only other horse I was a little interested in was Vixen. This was kind of a I don't know, maybe a bit of a pace play, but I kind of hate the post at this point, kind of being posted out there in 13. I thought this might have been one that could have shown a little bit of speed and maybe just gotten the piece at a price, but. I think with the post is going to need a little bit of help to get drawn inside a little bit more to really have a shot at anything. But Vekoma has, just absolutely burst on the scene as a 2-year-old sire. This is one that nice maiden win at Ellis Park and a nice second in the Natalma. But, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes these Woodbine horses don't ship necessarily too well into Breeders' Cup, but I thought one that was a little bit interesting here. But let's keep moving on here. BC Juvenile, 1.16 on the dirt, and I will let Mark. I will let you go first on this race. Obviously, East Avenue is 5-2, and is your morning line favorite. Is this a Mark special? You're taking the chalk and moving on?
No, I'm not. I honestly really don't like this race. I didn't like the draw for East Avenue, drawing the rail as a speed horse. I think there's a ton of speed signed on in this race, and I think it becomes a really sort of tough affair. I can make a case for a good majority of the field. I think the horses I want the most of are the 5 Jonathan's Way, the Phil Bauer horse who's undefeated. Iroquois was a really nice effort, and this one seems to be kind of trending in the right way. You have the quintessential Baffert in here and Citizen Bull, who there's no way you get even half that price because that's a terrible morning line. But I thought that American Pharaoh was a good race. Seems to be the added distance did definitely help. And then I think the Chad in here, Chancer McPatrick, I think is probably the horse I'm most interested in. But again, to some comments that people like Andrew have already made, watch the bias on Thursday, pay attention to it on Friday. If you can't close, you toss somebody like Chancer. But I think Chancer's a really weird horse in the fact that you don't see very many closers who are really good as 2-year-olds. That's kind of an oddball horse. He's an interesting horse, but if the track's playing fair, I think he's the one I want the most of. But again, I think this is a really, really tough race, and I know from like a contest standpoint for stuff that Caleb and I are playing in, this is almost like a do not touch type of race for me.
Caleb, do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree in principle. I think this is not a race that I have a lot of energy in putting money into. It's a race that I have a hard time really landing on any horses with confidence because I do think the top 3 or 4 all have merit and all look good. I can't look at a horse like East Avenue and say, oh, I'm not using this horse. He can't win because his last race was really good. He probably should be the favorite, but a horse like Chancer McPatrick, if the track comes up fair, looks also very usable. Jonathan's Way, I mean, he's one I'm not totally sure about the distance, but his debut was super impressive, and then back that up in the Iroquois. Not exactly the most productive Derby prep race of all time, but nevertheless, he won the way he was supposed to at 6-5 or whatever he was. So for me, I mean, I guess the one horse I'll speak to that I have some interest in, that's a bit of a price, is the number 7 Gaming. And speaking of maybe bad lines, I don't know that we're going to get 8-1 on this horse. But it's an undefeated Bob Baffert horse who's already has 2 wins here at Del Mar over the local surface, has early speed, doesn't need the lead. A little bit peculiar that you get Irad Ortiz aboard in here. Given, I guess, understandable that Pratt sticks with Chancellor McPatrick. Hernandez, I guess, going to Getaway Car was a bit surprising, but not sure how the choice or jockey merry-go-round worked there. But regardless, it's hard to be upset with getting Irad Ortiz as a jockey. This is a horse that I just think he has versatility. He's heading the right direction. He is bred to get a mile and a 16th for sure, though he hasn't quite gotten it yet. And he's just one that, I think coming into a race where, I think the top 4 all kind of look the same. I don't think Gaming is that far behind the top 3 maybe. And he's one that I think, because of the top 3 between Chancellor McPatrick, East Avenue, and then Jonathan's Way, I mean, is this the horse that maybe gets overlooked? And as crazy as that sounds to say about a Bob Baffert, Irad Ortiz horse in California, maybe he goes off 3-1, and that's, and I no longer have much interest in him. But at 5 or 6-1, I mean, because his numbers aren't as flashy and he doesn't really have the route experience. I mean, he's one that I wonder might get a little bit lost on the board a bit. And he's one that I think does come in with some merits that I'd be more interested in at a price. But again, not a race I want to get too involved in.
So Cobb asked the question, is Josh truly fearless? And I think the fact that I'm taking 2 Bob Baffert horses in the West Coast Breeders' Cup race probably tells you that I am in fact not fearless, and I'm going to go with the status quo here.
So
I have no interest.
You're gonna put the other Baffert right in the winner's circle
Probably
then?
right. There's
Cool. Well
probably
done,
there's a
Josh.
third
Well
Baffert that I didn't even look at. I'm sure that I'm going to miss here. The 2 Getaway
The
Car.
2?
But I don't know. I just thought the fact that the was favored last time out and wasn't able to get past the 6 Citizen Bull. But yeah, I think to Caleb's point, talking about the jockey merry-go-round, it is interesting that JJ stays aboard the 2 Getaway Car. But yeah, I have no interest in the 1 or the 10. I'll let those 2 beat me as your first and second choices on the morning line. I do agree with Caleb on the price. I think Citizen Bull and Gaming are probably going to be closer to 4-1, vying for like third choice or maybe even second choice, depending on how the betting goes. So I don't think I'm really sticking my neck out much here with these 2 picks. And you guys kind of highlighted all the reasons I like the horse. I mean, Citizen Bull, obviously, that American Pharaoh. I love seeing a horse coming in that's already run at the distance. Obviously, shown speed. Does have a little bit of tactical speed. It has set off a little bit. Not necessarily in a winning effort in that Del Mar Futurity, but I think is at least they've kind of at least tried to a couple different things with this horse, and then obviously Gaming. Same kind of thing, right? You had a wire-to-wire win, and you had one where, had to sit second after first call and kind of blew the brake there a little bit, or at least was a little bit slow out the gate and was 5th at first call. So I think a little bit of versatility with both those 2. Matt, where did you land?
Yeah, I really don't like anyone in this field, to be perfectly honest with you. I think all these races are pretty weak, and I don't think this is much of a graded stakes field, to be perfectly honest, right? Like, I think a lot of these races that the horses are coming out of, you've seen horses run back and run pretty poor. And when I see that, I kind of default back to Japan, right? And the horse I'm interested in from a value perspective is the 8 Shin Believe. I think just given everything else in this field, you have a lot of need to lead types, and Del Mar's not really going to melt. And there's no kind of horse that I think fills that gap for me. And so I'm defaulting back to just a value play in Japan, and maybe they steal this one, because really there's nothing else that interests me, kind of anyone else in here. So yeah, I'm going to go try to get some value and, hey, not connect too much through this race, I think, right? Just take a win bet, and if I miss, so be it.
So, Cobb mentioned earlier when we were talking about another Japanese horse, right? That the trainer of American Bikini, Hideyuki Mori, is a bit of an Ameribu. He only buys and trains American bred horses. Well, I believe, Matt, what we would call you is a weeb, since you are only betting Japanese horses, it seems like, today. But no, I don't hate it. I think you're right. I think this is a bit of a wide open race. Andrew, what did you think?
So I'm going to have to be the chalk eating weasel here, huh? Watch how Delmar is playing. If Delmar is playing like it did in the summer and East Avenue gets out of the gate, I think the race is over. I know that there's a fair amount of speed in here, but I'm looking at this horse, and I think this one's got a lot, and I mean a lot, in the tank. Brendan Walsh has a number of very strong 2-year-olds this year. This one's the best that he's got. We all know Godolphin has spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to cultivate horses that will win races like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and the Kentucky Derby. But if Delmar is the conveyor belt that we saw in the summer and East Avenue gets out of the gate, I think he could prove tough to catch. I don't think the rail is ideal, but I do think that if he winds up just getting out of the gate, I think that's going to be enough to put him in a position where he'll be the one they have to catch. And if he's able to ride the conveyor belt all the way around the racetrack, I think it'll be just as boring a race as we all think it is. I am interested in gaming, however. We mentioned how Delmar was playing over the course of the summer. This one actually rated at second asking and pounced to win the Delmar Futurity. Let's not lose sight of the fact that this horse was 5th of 7 at the first point of call and didn't look like he was going all that well. Was able to gather his footing and was able to rally past a couple of very nice horses in order to get the money. The pedigree says that this horse will handle the mile in a 16th. You've got a Son of Game winner who was a Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner out of a Johannesburg mare. Johannesburg, a Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner. I see workouts that I like. I see a Rod Ortiz Jr. You see that Baffert guy. And I see a horse that fits that spot a couple of us were talking about of having tactical speed, but not necessarily needing the lead in order to run well. I think Gaming's got a big shot. I'll be using Jonathan's Way a little bit here. I'm not sure what to make of the Iroquois. That was a 1-turn mile, and this is a horse going 2 turns for the first time. But he's done very little wrong, and that race he ran at Saratoga was a pretty incredible race, all things considered. He had no right to do anything after the break that he had that particular day. And I remember watching that race, seeing him circle the field, and I just texted a couple of people one word: freak. It's entirely possible that that horse was on the lead in the Iroquois just because he was that good. The one question I wanted to ask, because we haven't talked about this horse yet, at what point does Ferocious get a trip? At some point, he's going to get a trip, and he's going to wind up winning a big race. I'm not sure it's here, but I do see they go back to Javier Castellano, who was aboard for that big maiden win back on August the 3rd. Since then, he ran second, beaten a half length by Chancer McPatrick, and then he ran up against the biased at Keeneland. I'm not sure he wins, but given the fact that this horse has shown a fair amount of talent, if you're looking for a 4th horse to throw in underneath, I don't want any part of Chancer McPatrick given the post and the way the track might be playing. Give me Ferocious underneath at a bit of a price instead, because we know this horse has talent. He just may be a bit of a head case.
All right. And then we'll move on to the BC Juvenile Turf, race 10 on the card. It's going to close it out. Honestly, I kind of had a hard time with this race. I haven't had much of a chance to kind of look through a lot of these horses that have a couple starts either here in the U.S. or who have are coming in from overseas. The one thing I will say is the number 10 Menti is going to be on my tickets. Right. I mean, this is big surprise, right? It's probably going to be me and Papa Knight sitting in the
throw the cherries on there. Throw the cherries on there. We all know what you saw.
But me and Papa Knight are going to be on there. But honestly, I don't see very much speed in this race. I see a sprinter that is stretching out, and I just think it's curious that Todd Pletcher goes to the turf instead of the turf sprint when I didn't really think that the turf sprint field was all that strong. So, maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into it. But I thought Menti, with that speed and winning that futurity last time out at Backwaduct, I thought, I don't know. I thought this horse made a ton of sense. Is going to be on my tickets, and then I'm going to have to do a little bit more work looking at some of the Euros. Caleb, I know there's a horse you liked in this race at a long price, so I'll let you go next. Where did you land?
Yeah, no, thanks. And I do think Menti would have been a big player in the sprint, for the record. I mean, I don't know that I love him in this race, but I do think he would have been a much better player in the sprint. At any rate, the price horse that I thought was kind of interesting in here is the Europeans tend to dominate this race. Aidan O'Brien and Charlie Appleby kind of take turns winning. So I'm going to kind of stay with that trend in spirit, and I do think a European's going to win this race. But there's one in here, the number 9, the Waco Kid, who's 20-1 in the book and is probably the least flashy of the Europeans. But this is a horse that I gave a pretty long look to in here. The last effort was actually quite good in the Tattersall Stakes in Newmarket. The question for me is, did the soft turf really move this horse up? Because it was a significant improvement relative to what we've seen before. But it isn't like the horse was completely overmatched or hasn't been running, competitive races or anything like that leading into this race. I mean, the horse has been good. I mean, very competitive, just perhaps, a little bit overmatched in a few of those races, but then finally kind of put it together last time out. So this is one in here that showed good tactical speed last time, actually made the lead in that race. I do not expect those to be the tactics that Connections used today, or on Friday, but I always do like to know that the two, European horses aren't hopelessly, devoid of early speed and just total, one-run closers. So I like the fact that the Waco Kid does have some versatility in here. I mean, looking at the pedigree with Galileo on the bottom, should be able to get the mile in here. And not that the 9 post is necessarily a phenomenal draw, but I do think, of the main rivals to his, immediate outside, he did draw a little bit better than horses like New Century or Henry Matisse, or, even a horse like, Amori City. So I thought, that was a good effort last time. And if that wasn't just a fluke based on the soft turf, I think at 20-1, you're getting a great price to find out.
Andrew?
So God bless the morning line man who made this morning line, because I don't know how you do it in this particular race. I have no idea. And there has been a lot of flack sent the morning line man's way for some of the prices that we're seeing. First of all, the fact was Breeders' Cup protocol dictates that the morning line needs to be done before the draw. I disagree with that completely, but that's neither here nor there. If the morning line holds up, I think number 11, New Century, is very vulnerable. Woodbine's turf course was playing like green pavement on the day of the Grade 1 summer, and that race was a total meltdown. You see a mile in 1:32 and 4. I don't know what to make of a time like that. I don't know what to make of a speed figure like that. This was a runner that was running in a couple of okay races overseas, and it's not like this one was running terribly, but you see that one lost to number 4 Alcudra twice, and I don't particularly love Alcudra much in this particular spot either. One of my strongest leans on Breeders' Cup Friday is a horse Caleb mentioned in passing, and that's the 12, Amori City. If you look back at the race this one ran 2 starts ago in the vintage, he overcame a fair amount of trouble in that particular spot. He got out of the gate okay, but he sort of got shuffled back going around the turn. He wasn't allowed to really make his own running until about 3/16 of a mile to go, at which point William Buick navigated him off the rail, and he went shwoom straight through an opening and left the rest of the field in the dust. That day's runner-up, Wolf of Badenoch, was another one that moved pretty well late. But if you see that horse's turn of foot at about the 8th pole, you're seeing something special here. And I just think he might have bounced last time out going against Group 1 company at the Curragh. I see that William Buick shows up here for Chucky Apples, and that is usually a very, very good thing. I see 10-1 on a horse that if he repeats that effort 2 back, I think he's got a big, big shot. I respect number 13, Henry Matisse. I'm a little bit curious about Blinkers Off. I am not sure if a mile is really what he wants, given his pedigree, but I do think you see Aiden O'Brien and Ryan Moore there. That merits some respect. I just wonder if this might be a little bit long for him. The horse that I am interested in at a big price, and Matt, we might want to go your way after this one, given some of the comments you've made leading up to this race. I am very intrigued by number 1, Satono Carnival. This is a horse that's gone 2 for 2. I found the debut race online. I did not find the grade 3 win last time out. And that race he ran first time out was about as visually impressive as you're going to find. I don't know what he beat that day. I'm hoping for a little bit more insight here. But I see 20-1 on the morning line, and I would need to at least have this one on a couple of tickets in the event this one just winds up being one of many freaks Japan has sent over here. But I will have a lot of action going through Omori City in this particular spot. I think that's a really good one.
All right, Matt, where do you land here?
So I don't really like the Japanese horse at all because I don't think Japan has many great turf runners. I don't think there's a ton that they beat. So, yeah, they look really great when they're, winning by 10 lengths, but like it's as if I was jogging in that field, right? I think that's the issue. So, again, the price is certainly right. And I do think the fact that Rachel King comes over for this race specifically is incredibly intriguing. I think you definitely have the right price on that. I probably will still use it on a couple tickets, to be honest with you, just because of that. But, I don't think by any means it'll be my top play in here. I think I probably followed the same logic you did in this. I really liked Omori City, if for no other reason than just playing follow the jock, right? I do think the morning lines on this are giving too much credit to that Woodbine race. William Buick would be on those horses. It would be on Al Qudra if he thought Al Qudra could win this race, and clearly he doesn't. So I think, looking at New Century as favorite, when even if you visually watch that race, right, the only reason New Century wins that race is because Al Qudra gets absolutely demolished in the stretch. It's a funny replay to watch, considering they can't really do much. They can't take down the horse that finished third, but Mark Casse kind of commits violence in the stretch of that race. You should watch it. It's a good one. But look, I think just given the fact that those horses will be favored in here, and William Buick doesn't want to be on them, that's telling to me. I'd much rather take 10-1 on Omori City or whatever you end up getting. I don't think you get 10-1 on that horse. The only other horse I did like, I think, and you keep kind of getting away with it, is the price on the Chad, Zulu Kingdom. I do think that horse has closed a couple times in here and beaten some pretty decent fields, and I think could be sneaky. And anytime you can get a price on, Chad Pratt that has shown some ability, I think you got to take it, right? I think all these monies are going to go towards the Euros, and you kind of may swing the pendulum the other way in this race, and maybe get a decent price on, you'll get all 8-1 hopefully on it. So I'm intrigued by that because I think that one's been moving forward and I think has a lot of ability that you haven't yet seen. So.
But don't
I'm
you
happy
have
that
to
you brought up
downgrade because
Zulu-
of
Josh.
the jock change? I mean, you're going from Joel Rosario to Flavian Pratt. I mean, that's a bit of a downgrade, isn't it?
Do you realize that Flavian won on the horse 2 back, right?
Flavian won on that horse 2 back with probably the best ride of the entire Saratoga
It was
meet.
phenomenal.
Watch the way that he maneuvers his horse through traffic. Tenacious Leader never saw Zulu Kingdom until the last stride or two of that race. Zulu Kingdom is not a big horse. Zulu Kingdom, European bred, and looks like a European runner. Tenacious Leader, much bigger. And you could tell Flavian Pratt was trying to steer to keep that horse out of trouble. I don't hate that. That was actually my 4th choice in that race. I'm just not sure what to make of the Pilgrim last time out over that boggy course that they ran on. I'm not sure how much moving forward has actually happened there because I don't know what we can take from that race. But that one looks like a nice horse for sure.
Yeah, I think having watched a little bit of Aqueduct, I think that's probably Joel's only win, given the amount I watched. So if he's winning on that horse, clearly the horse is a monster, right? And that's a decent capping angle, if nothing else.
Is that like the Vinny? It's basically a Vinny off angle. I like it. I appreciate that.
No, I had Matt run the numbers. It's not as good as we thought. Sixer says he likes Minaret Station as a bond. Then you guys give that horse a look?
No.
Minaret Station cost me the all turf pick 3 that day when he came rolling. So anytime I see that horse in a program from here on out, it's just going to bring this reaction to my face.
And it looks like the trainer of Satona Carnival, Noriyuki Hori, is having a fantastic season with 2-year-olds, winning at around a 50% rate. But I think, to Matt's point, like what was he beating there? I don't really know.
That Santona Carnival, that last race was very visually impressive if you watch the stakes race. I don't know what the horse was beating, but that's a horse you want to have on tickets just on how visually impressive it was. I do agree with Matt's general consensus, but the Japanese have turned out some pretty damn good turf horses over the years. So
Wasn't Space Blues Japanese?
No.
Love's Only You was.
Love's Only You. Thank you.
Deep. Yeah, I mean, there's a few others. Deep Impact, like there's a few others, right? So, yeah.
Anything else on this race, Mark?
No, I was just gonna say you guys have already talked it. I actually think, I know to Matt's point about New Century, I actually think I moved the performance up a little bit given the amount of body blows he took at the stretch there. He had a pretty rough trip. A lot of other horses could have just kind of packed it in and said, nah. He blew through a hole, got beat up doing it, and kept on. I thought that was actually really impressive. So, 2 ways to look at the same race, right?
All right. So I think that's going to do it for us on Friday. Obviously, we'll have more. I'm going to try and get some videos up while we're on track and doing stuff, and maybe we'll have some time to do some additional stuff to look at stuff. But we got a lot more races to get through, so let's go. We got the BC Filly and Mare Sprint here, race 4. We're going 7 furlongs here on the main track, and honestly, I only need one horse here, and that's going to be my top pick. I feel like I've probably been the number one Society fan for quite some time, and then I feel like I finally got off last time at Saratoga, and I think I paid the ultimate price for it because I think it probably cost me something. But I look at this race, I don't know. I just don't really see a ton of speed in here. And I mean, Society, we've seen when she gets on the front end and she gets comfortable, I mean, she's very, very hard to beat. I think she's one of those horses that really, really loves the 7 furlong distance. And a lot of these other horses, not necessarily 7 furlong specialists. I mean, you have Vava, who has done pretty well at 7 furlongs. But you're asking a horse to close in a sprint here at Del Mar. I'm just going to go with the horse I think is going to get to the front. Lone A, only horse I'm going to probably use in this race, and that's the 6 Society. I saw, Andrew, you gave a big thumbs up. I'm guessing you're seeing the race pretty similar to I am.
I like Society a fair bit. I thought the Ballerina was very good. My knock on Society going into that race was this looks like a horse that needs the lead. Well, for the first time in her career, she relaxed a little bit just off the pace, and she won very impressively over a pretty good group. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know I love this Steve Asmussen work pattern where the work 2-back is a bullet, and then they have a nice maintenance move last time out. We get that here. October 19th, 5 furlongs in 1 minute and 1. That's a fast work by Steve Asmussen standards. I think he's got her primed and ready to run. A lot of the same reasons Josh likes this horse. I like this horse. The one that I am intrigued by at a price is horse number 3, Pleasant. Pleasant is a horse that was off more than a year, hadn't been seen since August 24th of last year when she came back at Los Alamitos, won like a 2-5 shot should. But this is a horse that if you dig deeper, you find hasn't done a lot wrong. That one loss was by a head to a stakes runner by the name of Clearly Unhinged. Clearly Unhinged has some talent, and this one went head-to-head with her before ultimately losing a pretty tough photo. I love the Baffert works here on this one. You see 3 works since that last start. You see October 5th, fastest of 60, October 13th, 5th fastest of 46, October 25th, 5th fastest of 37. I don't know if she's faster than Society, but this may well wind up being a merry-go-round race, and if it's 6-3 all the way around the racetrack, That's a nice exacta for me. The one that I'm against at her likely price is a horse that I have been against a lot, and that's number 9, Ways and Means. Caleb Term Alert, candy ass trips in each of her last 2 outings. She's a nice horse, but I think she's in significantly deeper in this spot than she has been in each of her past 3 outings. I think she is going to find going significantly tougher here. Chad Brown's won this race a bunch, several times with Goodnight Olive. All due respect to Ways and Means, who I think is a very nice horse that I'm looking forward to seeing progress as a 4-year-old. I don't think she's Goodnight Olive. If she winds up going off favored, I think that's an underlay. Give me 6 and 3 on top with much more of my action going through Society.
Yeah, Ways and Means, just to put a little, period on top there, Andrew. Ways and Means has 1 race, which is as fast as 3 or 4 others that have multiple races they've run at that pace. So she's just, maybe she comes out and fires a new career top back into her 3-year-old season. I've seen weirder things happen, but you have to understand some of those big figures are on sloppy tracks where she's just dominating fields, and she's one of the ones getting across it. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on Ways and Means. I think she's massive underlay.
Is it the race that you say fits the 1-3 back or the last one?
It's the 1-3 back. I think.
The 1-3
The
back.
one
yeah,
that
which
she
was
ran on
a dry
Lasix.
track. Yeah. Oh, on Lasix too. That's a good point. But yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I mean, you look at the breeding, right? You see Practical Joke, and you're like, all right, this horse is going to absolutely love the mud. And I think you look at the PPs, and it basically backs that up, with the exception of the Kentucky Oaks. And I was a huge Ways and Means fan going into that Kentucky Oaks, and then I saw it was going to be sloppy. I thought that was going to be a slam dunk, and obviously, maybe just a bit too far for the horse. But yeah, I'm very against the 9 Ways and Means here. Caleb, I know how much you hate chalk. Are you also against Ways and Means?
Not as much as y'all. I view this race pretty flat among the top 3. I think Vava, Society, or Ways and Means wins this race 95% of the time. And I don't know that it's a dead even split, but I think it's close. I think I guess on time form, Ways and Means does seem a little slow. On Brisnet and Thoroughgraph, I mean, her most recent race and her race at a mile both, put her squarely in contention and make her one of the, if not the fastest horse in the race. So, I mean, it kind of depends on the set of figures that you're leaning on, I guess. She does have a tactical advantage on, a horse like Vava, who we haven't talked about. I do think that's the horse that probably gets overlooked a bit in here, simply because I think a lot of bettors have very, very, very short memories. So they're going to see, oh, she ran bad last time, I'm not going to bet her. I mean, she was even money to beat Society in that ballerina at Saratoga. And I'm fairly well convinced that the rail was not the place to be on August 24th that day. I thought she was kind of stuck inside. We saw a number of runners that just didn't really run well, that were getting those inside trips that day. So for me, I'm a little bit more willing to forgive her of that kind of flat effort that's kind of uncharacteristic for what we've come to see from her. Not that it was poor, but she's the one that I think is going to offer the most value of any of the top 3. And given that I do sort of see it as a, essentially equal split of a 3-horse race, and I do agree that Ways and Means probably is somewhat of an underlay, I'll probably look towards Vava. If I can get that 4-1, 9-2 ballpark, then I'll be pretty happy with that.
So before we move on to Matt, I have a new life goal, guys. I think this is probably the perfect life goal to have. I want to have enough money that I can have a horse that's bred like the 5 and decide, just fuck it, let's run this horse on dirt. Like, what are we doing here, people? Goodness gracious. Matt, where did you land? Anything you liked in here?
Yeah, I kind of try to take a stand and say, well, there's a lot of horses I don't like in here, and I think I kind of defaulted to Ways and Means because of that. To your point on slop, I think I saw it a little bit different. I thought Ways and Means slop figs were actually a bit of a dip from the kind of fast races that she's run. If you look at it, 3 fast races, then drops 10 points running on a slop track, runs a 106, drops 2 races running on muddy and sloppy. If you get a fast track, to me, that's a horse that could actually be progressing forward and may not take as much to the bad ground as you all think, given the breeding. I don't know, and again, 5-2 probably isn't the best price on that, but I mean, I don't really like the ballerina at all as a race. I just think visually that race probably isn't as strong as people think it is. I don't like the Bafferts coming off Lasix, right? You don't know how those horses are going to run. They've never actually run without Lasix, so that's a concern for me. And again, I think I probably just ended up defaulting in here to the chalk a little bit because of that. The only other horse I think that interested me, you mentioned a horse with breeding, and you're like, why the hell would you run this horse on dirt? Is the one Frosted Dawn. I mean, you get 30-1, you get to Tory. I don't know what the hell this horse is doing in here, but if you get Frankie on a horse that, you kind of don't know, you've seen him run these things before. And I do think, Caleb and family are probably obligated to bet this horse at least because at least the trainer's name is Knight. So if someone's got to bet it, I'll do it. Right?
Yes.
I'll take a little bit of that, but I do think Ways and Means probably is the one to beat here if I had to take a stand.
Yeah, and I'm looking at overseas odds. I see Ways and Means at 5-2, Society at plus 325. Vava's actually 5-1, which I think maybe I was overthinking what kind of price you'd get on Vava, but yeah, I think that's a pretty square price. I think on Ways and Means. I thought maybe it might be a bit shorter on the tote, but it'll be interesting to see. Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint here. We're gonna be going 5 furlongs on the turf, and guys, this is one that I have absolutely zero opinion on. I want to beat Cogburn so bad, and I'm gonna find a way to beat Cogburn here, but I just don't know how I'm gonna do it. So please, anybody got any ideas? Caleb, you hate chalk.
Yeah, no. I mean, the only horse that I think has I would say prayer of beating Cogburn is Brad Sell. I think he was hurt by the draw pretty significantly. That's a tough post to win from, so I'm not trying to beat Cogburn. Brad Sell, I think, is the only horse that really has much of a shot to do so. But I think Mark liked a horse in this race at a price, so maybe Mark has a better idea.
Yeah, I'll say, I due to the Ed DeRosa / Matt DeSantis stat, I will have Cogburn on none of my tickets. I'm going to try to beat Cogburn in here. I think, I think Brad Sell's a very, very, very interesting horse and clearly very talented. But I did give a bit of a look to the number 4 Starlust. This is a horse that, the 3-back effort, or so I guess the 4-back effort, was a very, very, very nice effort. And then if you look at the trip notes or you watch any of the next 3 races, this horse has had 3 absolutely brutal trips in a row. 2 back, the jockey went just completely brain dead and forgot to actually ride the horse until about 100 meters out. At the last race, one of the leaders basically peeled, one of those horses that once nose stopped in front of the horse. The horse went over to the rail, ended up bouncing off the rail in the lane. Just like all of these, this list of all of the list of things that could potentially go wrong have gone wrong in the last 3 for Starlust. But if you look at the speed figures, the horse fits on time form and is not that much slower than what somebody like a Brad Sell has been running. So I think Starlust at a huge price, if, and again, a 3-year-old that's still definitely improving. If Starlust can inherit a clean trip in here, I think is a really interesting player at a stupid price.
I have to share what was just shared in the On the Wrong Lead chat. And
Caleb, it's a long ass walk between San Diego and Denver. I'm just letting you know, bud.
Yeah.
There is 0% chance that Mark will have Cogburn on 0 of his tickets. I'll walk back from San Diego if that happens.
I'm not saying you play your BCBC double into him, but if you leave that horse off of a pick 5, I will walk back from San Diego.
You're walking, just saying.
We've done far less to fuck you a friend. So I'm just saying, like, Mark will burn. Look, you know how much that shirt costs? You don't want to know.
So trying to get this train back on the rails a bit here. Look, I'm not crazy about going against Cogburn. I'm not going to be playing this race all that much. I will say 12-1 is too big of a price on Big Evs. This is a horse that won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint last year, a race where Starlust wound up running 3rd. And if you just consider that, hey, maybe something just went wrong last time out, draw a line through that race, you're left with a horse that's won a couple of stakes races, ran 3rd at Royal Ascot. The post is not ideal. This is another horse that got hurt by the draw, and I would like this one a lot more if it broke inside of Cogburn as opposed to outside. But if you're looking for a horse to throw in underneath Cogburn and Exactas, or just playing a cheap pick 4 that starts here just on the off chance Cogburn stubs his toe, we have seen horses in the turf sprint that are heavily favored stub their toes in the past. Looking at you, Golden Pal, though I think being bred more than 200 times a year is making that a little bit easier for Golden Pal to swallow. If Cogburn's right, he wins. If he's not, maybe Big Evs.
All right, Matt, you're a chalk eater as big as I am. Come on, or a chalk hater. Like, come on, tell me you're trying to beat Cogburn.
I'm not trying to beat Cogburn.
God bless it.
But one that I'm interested in, I will say, is the one Believing. And I know it's going to look awkward because that horse has lost to Bradsell 3 times, right? And that's probably not a horse that you typically want because you see a shared race and you're like, okay, once maybe, but 3 times is probably too much. Still, I can't remember if it's the replay at York or at Curra, but that horse's closing kick in one of those races is phenomenal. I mean, it is closing from the dead back of a straight race, a flat 5 furlongs, and doesn't almost get up. But I mean, I think at least
that was the Curra race.
Yeah, and if the track is at least playing against speed, and I know it's hard to say, hey, a 5 furlong turf sprint is going to be playing against speed, but if you do see it, it could happen at Del Mar. I don't know, like bring up a tide chart or something like that and make a case for it. If it's not playing, if speed is not friendly to the turf, this horse probably has the best chance at any.
There it is.
That's the real reason I ninth.
There it is.
Finishing 9th by 8.5 lengths at Chatin is probably going to win any race in international. That's definitely the angle that I'm taking. I'm just saying that horse has a closing kick. I don't think it's been able to show on straight races, and you never know what these Euros are going to do with a turn. So to me, that's one at least that's interesting at 12-1, and hey, you get Ryan Moore up too. That's never a bad thing. So don't dismiss it, even though you're going to see, hey, it's lost to Bradsell 3 straight.
I'm going to tell you guys right now that I'm very, very afraid of this 10 horse.
Say the 10 horse's name.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that?
Isivungu Vungu.
That's close. We'll take it.
Yeah,
it's better than your
from
can't beat.
South Africa, because every time I leave Manny Franco off a ticket, he fucks me, and every time I use him, he just gives the most brain dead ride of his life. And I don't know. That last race was probably way too slow, but I don't know. I thought he was kind of an interesting horse shipping in here from South Africa. Won kind of a listed stakes at Colonial, but man, you guys didn't help me at all with trying to beat Cogburn. So
we're the worst.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't go to AG Bullet. That just kind of feels like a Josh horse.
Yeah,
that feels like such a Josh horse.
I looked at AG Bullet. I was trying to find like where the speed was, but like I don't know. I still think that I look at it and it might still be Cogburn. So I don't know. Maybe AG Bullet's just I don't know. Maybe he's just not fast enough. Honestly, if Rosario was up on Big Invasion, I'd be much more interested. But Frankie the Tory. I mean, it's just.
By the way, Josh, I do like your 10 quite a bit as a horse that's going to get probably ignored, and I think you can make some angles for. If you look at the back races in South Africa, those fit there pretty well speed figure wise. Clearly, there was a long layoff, something went not to plan, but Graham Motion spots his horses very, very well. He doesn't tend to take shots. Got to prep into the horse where I'm sure the horse wasn't cranked, and I would imagine you're going to get a step forward to that race. So I thought the 10 was super interesting.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, Nick's pointing out San Diego rain's not like the rest of the world. It'll mostly drizzle, and non-Californians will laugh at all of us Californians melting and freezing at 67 degrees. Fun fact, it was actually warmer here in Chicago than it was in San Diego today, because it hit 82 here, and I think it was only like 78 in San Diego.
78 in San Diego. Thoughts and prayers to the San Diegans out there.
He says, I do think rainy cloud does impact the track. Look much more at last year's fall meet more than this year's summer meet to see how the track plays. So appreciate that, Nick, and hopefully, if you are on track, you come by and say hi. But yeah, let's move on here. Race 6. All right, guys, this might be this. Normally we joke around and we're like, oh, we're gonna sit here and talk, for a half hour about a race it's a 1-horse race, blah blah blah. Look, is anybody trying to beat Torpedo Anna in this race?
I'm not singling her.
All right, Andrew, I'll let you talk then.
I mean, the only other alternative is the 9. Awesome Result. Stranger Danger horse. 7 for 7 over in Japan. Last time out, won by 5 lengths. I see nothing from the Americans that I'm at all scared of. I respect Torpedo Anna. If the Torpedo Anna we saw earlier in the year shows up, almost certainly wins. But I've seen some numbers about 3-year-old fillies trying the distaff, and also there was some regression last time out in the cotillion. I mean, Gunsong isn't bad. Tarifa isn't bad. Those two ran 1-2 over the weekend at Aqueduct. She's supposed to crush those horses, and she didn't. And I'm wondering if maybe there's a chance Torpedo Anna is over the top. Now, 95% of Torpedo Anna, and she probably wins by 3 lengths. But on the off chance that she isn't, I think Awesome Result may very well be an appealing play out there for some of the contest players, because what has that horse done wrong?
Can I just mention something? I'm very proud of everyone on the stream that nobody was like, who I'm going to make my best bet? Torpedo Anna. All right. I appreciate that everyone understood the assignment, right? And wasn't going to be like, well, obviously Torpedo Anna is the most likely winner on Saturday's card, which I think she is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the distaff that's always produces the bomb. It's the filly and mare sprint, right?
No, the filly and mare sprint has
distaff.
been very chalky. Distaff had the Japanese horse that won and paid $9 gazillion a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the horse that beat Dunbar Road and cost Caleb a small fortune.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry about that.
I had to bring it back. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I briefly forgot about that.
Also, check this out, dude. Nick Severs is hanging out at Nick Feldman's house, but apparently he's too cool to show up for the chat today.
Is Nick Zito over there too?
Well, hey, we're gonna be on track Thursday too, Nick. If you're free on Thursday, so we'll be on track all week. So, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday at least. All right, I'm not gonna belabor this race because we are short on time. So let's move on to the BC Turf here. This was an interesting race because I think, was this the one that we were talking? No, this is not the race we were talking about. That was the filly and mare turf. In this one, I did think Rebels Romance was in here. I thought she's my lone A. I think she makes a ton of sense in this spot.
He has no balls, but it's a he.
They have a very, very good shot in here. And Andrew, I did notice that is your best bet for the weekend is Rebels Romance.
I don't know who Rebels Row is, but yeah, just looking at the graphic down there, it's cut off. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, I can't overthink this. 90% of Rebels Romance wins this race. This is a runner that has proven merits in a variety of different countries in a variety of different ways. I know Matt will be singling him as well because this is a horse that won a Group 1 in Hong Kong back in May. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, all due respect to the rest of this field, it's not bad. Rebels Romance is 14 of 21 lifetime earnings of over $9 million. And you're telling me I might get 5-2 on a horse that is absolutely towering over this field on his best day? Sign me up for absolutely all of that. Now, as far as underneath goes, I do think you can get a couple of prices home. Sherrar running second last year would have made my month. Instead, winds up running third after that day's rider got outridden, got beat to a spot by the rider of Auguste Rodin, Ryan Moore. That's why Ryan Moore makes the big bucks, folks. Sherrar ran well that day. I'll be using him underneath again. But this is a horse where it's been a long time between drinks, and I'm wondering if maybe we've seen the best of him. His best race could potentially contend here, but it's going to take a lot for that to show up. The underneath horse where I'll get a little crazy with the cheese whiz on you is number 12, Gold Phoenix. Last time out had absolutely no pace to run at, draw a line straight through that race. He loves Del Mar with 4 wins and 6 starts over this turf course, and he's going to get some pace to run at. Do I think he wins? No. Do I think he needs to improve all that much after running 4th in last year's Breeders' Cup turf to hit the board at a price in this spot? No. But Rebels Romance is my most likely winner over the 2 days. All my action in the multi-race sequences will be going through that one. And if that one doesn't win, I lose, and I imagine many others lose as well. Guys, I can't overthink this on top.
Yeah, I do have another horse. Actually, I thought that was my lone A, but the other horse I am going to use as an A is a horse that I feel like I bet every time I see him run. Just like randomly, I feel like Mark or Caleb will be like, "Hey, like this horse is running at some random track overseas, and is running at Epsom, is running at Ascot," and I seem to always have a bet on this horse. And that's the 4 Luxembourg. Looks to be 3rd choice overseas right now. We're looking at about half the price. We have 12 to 1 in the morning line. We're looking at about 6 to 1 overseas. And I'll tell you, to your point, Andrew, he's got a race or 2 that at least are in the ballpark. And I don't have all my data in front of me, but I think at least on time form, he's got 1 or 2 figures that are at least a point or 2 within what I think probably wins this race. So I thought he was in here with a pretty big shot. I think this is the first time that he's run in the U.S. I thought last year that he would be here with a huge shot, but they instead decided to try the Hong Kong Cup, where he finished 2nd to Romantic Warrior, who's just a really, really cool horse over there in Hong Kong. But I thought Luxembourg made a bit of sense here, and is going to be a little bit a longer price. And then you already talked about the 3 Shahryar. That's another horse that I think has got 2 or 3 races that are right there with the other horses. So I have it written as an A. I think it's more of a B type in here, but I think we pretty much landed on the same horses there, Andrew. Caleb, where did you land?
I had a hard time in this race because, Rebels Romance is fine. The horse earned $9 million, so clearly is at least kind of fine. And I do think this is the kind of horse that just fits U.S. racing, and that's why we see this horse be so successful at Hong Kong and the Middle East and, in the U.S., perhaps not quite as effective in the more European style of racing. So I do think the horse fits this race. But I've always just admittedly not been highly impressed with the overall quality of that horse. With that being said, I just don't think this is a very strong addition of the Breeders' Cup turf. Yet we have the ghost of Emily Upjohn, who is just not what she used to be. Rebels Romance is fine. Like I said, he's probably your most likely winner, but I don't, I just wasn't quite convinced. I was looking for some other horses to try to use in here, because I do think this is the race where I kind of want maybe a new face. I did think that Shirar was interesting, not a new face per se, but if you kind of ignore the runs at Sapporo in Japan, the form does look quite a bit better. Again, that run against Rebels Romance 2-back in the Shima Classic was a good second, considering it was coming off about a 4 or 5 month layoff. But again, I mean, I've seen a lot of Shirar. I think I know how good that horse is. So for me, I was kind of looking for some of the more wild cards, and I actually ended up somewhat begrudgingly on the number 10 Wingspan. This is kind of, I guess, the other Aidan O'Brien horse in the race, if you assume Luxembourg is the one with the well-intended one with Ryan Moore aboard. But, for me, I kind of looked – the one win most recently anyway for this horse came with Wayne Lorden aboard back in August. And this is a horse that has been, fairly heavily campaigned, over the summer or the late summer into the fall with, 4 starts in the past 2 months, but has really never gone backwards. And whether you're looking at time form or Thorograph or anything else, this is a horse that, while the results haven't always suggested it, the numbers have sort of indicated this is a horse that has progressively moved forward in each and every start. Now you're telling me we're getting, a Dubawi horse with a Galileo on the bottom going 1.5 miles against a suspect field, getting 7 pounds against a horse like Rebels Romance as the 3-year-old filly in the race. I mean, we've seen these kind of horses be very successful in the ARC, where they get a big weight break for the younger horses, especially fillies facing olders. 7 pounds maybe isn't the type of weight break we'd see overseas, but it's not nothing. I mean, Aiden O'Brien, obviously one of the best trainers in the world. And for me, in a race where I just am not sold on some of the usual suspects, I mean, Luxembourg coming in with some questionable form, Rebels Romance not doing much wrong, but I just think I know how good he is. And, just kind of looking for that outsider for me. I just was kind of reticent to accept the price on a horse that I think is maybe past their prime a bit or not quite as good as they used to be, like Emily Upjohn. So for me, this is a race where I'd be looking for some prices, and Wingspan's kind of the one I landed on tepidly, but that I did land on.
Great board game, by the way. Cobb says that the 5th at Sapporo last out scares you off Shariar. Note he got 11th in that race last year, though he did have a wind operation after that race. So I did not realize Cobb was such a Japanese expert, but he knows everything about Japanese racing, apparently. Matt, where did you land?
Yeah, just to go back quickly to Andrew's best bet, I find a delicious irony in him complaining about graphics. Anyway, I actually have zero opinion in this race. I think Rebels Romance, just the campaign is probably going to catch up to him. He's been flying around the globe. He's been globetrotting between Hong Kong, between Medan to Germany. I mean, do you really want 5-2 on a horse that's been shipping everywhere and running at all these different spots? To me, that's a pass. Horses like Luxembourg, I think, are washed. They're past their prime. I agree with Caleb a little bit. I'm going to go, if I had to default to anyone in this race, I think I'm going to play the Hong Kong angle and just say, hey, take the 7 pounds and bet the lightest horse and go from there, right? I mean, Wingspan's running off at 119 and the rest of this field's going off at 126. So, hey, not that weight plays a huge, factor in American racing, but I think maybe it could. Otherwise, I don't know. I'd probably just play an all in this race if you really had me to play through this, and maybe it's just a no bet for me. I just think a lot of the favorites in here are kind of washed, and nothing really excites me. So.
Matt, really quickly, has Josh informed you of my $1 million idea?
Probably, but
so the $1 million idea is a sister show to You Gotta Be.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, we referenced that, and I said this weekend actually when they ran at Happy Valley, I said I have to hit a race at Happy Valley before we actually have a show about it.
See, I'm the opposite. I've been doing pretty well at Happy Valley. It's Shatin where I have right horses wrong order disease.
Nick Seaver saying a 6-year-old has never won this race, which means nothing, but fun fact. Have you guys ever seen the movie Little Big League?
Yes.
There's a real he gets this real crazy stat. It's like, oh, here's something.
Yep.
It's like his
Several times there. Yep.
Yeah, he's like this horse. He's never gotten a hit on Tuesday past whatever.
Josh, the horse's name is Friday.
Yes, it is. Apparently someone's air conditioner or something just kicked on. Holy
is somebody doing this from under an airplane?
Oh no! I feel. Caleb's finding out something about his house that he doesn't like.
Yeah,
Mark,
I'll be real quick.
Where did you end up landing
quick.
at?
Yeah, I was saying I saw this race much the same as Matt and Caleb. I think it's a pretty wide open affair. I do want to put a soft fade on Rebels Romance. Can he win the race? Sure, but I think his last 4 races have all gotten progressively slower. Yes, he wins. He's a globetrotter. He's done all the things. He's won all the big races. I get it, but I do very much agree that I think his campaign, I think he does seem to be slowing down a little. If you looked at, they used the same prep race in Cologne, and last out he barely got it done this time. I should say when he came to the Breeders' Cup 2 years ago, they used the same prep race, and he was a fair bit slower in that last race than he was 2 years ago. So I think he is getting 6-year-old. He is probably starting to slow down a little. Can he win this on his best day? Yeah, but I think he does need his A effort to really pull this off. The only horse that you guys, I ended up on Shahar as probably my top choice in here. I think if Christian Demure doesn't go to the rail and keeps that horse out in the track with Auguste Rodin last year, Auguste Rodin may not have won the turf because he actually had first run on Auguste Rodin, and then he kind of got a little bonehead into the lane there and had a lot of traffic when he went inside. But the other horse that nobody's mentioned is the 6 horse Farbridge, who Farbridge's last 2 races fit very well here. This seems to be his trip. Yeah, this is a class test, right? And say all you want about it, that's fine, but if you go by his recency, he's been in really, really good form, and I know there's all the things, but is he a horse that back end of his 4-year-old season, puts a big one up. Sure, could happen. And I don't hate him, and you probably get a little bit on that 6-1 as well. Oh, I'm getting buzzed.
That's a new one.
I had to type that one up real quick. I will say to Mark's point, I really hated how good Farbridge's figures looked to the rest of the horses in this race. I will say it's a little interesting with Rebels Romance that he's not taking more money overseas. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but I'm seeing plus 275, which is basically 5-2, which is basically the morning line. And they love betting their horses. So the fact that Rebels Romance is kind of lukewarm, I do think it's a more wide open race. I do think that 5-2 is probably right. Like 5-2, 3-1 is probably where, like, if I were to tell somebody, hey, like, this is a bet you should make. That's about, I think, the fair value line, somewhere around there. I mean, obviously, I would prefer like 3-1, but I do think part of that too has to do with the fact that I think horses like the 4 Luxembourg and Shahryar, I think I still see around 10-1 overseas, but Luxembourg I think is basically halved everywhere I've seen. So I do think that's a little interesting. I will say one horse that we didn't talk about, and I mean, this is only a 2-cherry horse, but I mean, come on, wasn't this a Stream Team horse, Cabo Spirit, last time out, right? Went wire to wire in a race completely devoid of speed. And I don't know, man, this kind of looks like this could be another one. And, that West Coast turf is just different than Kentucky and East Coast turf. So I thought he was interesting, probably more of an underneath type play. I could see him being the American that maybe finishes, in third or second possibly, but I thought he was a little interesting. But why don't we keep going here? Race 8, the Breeders' Cup Classic, and my goodness, Caleb, I don't know, like, I can't believe that there's actually 2 best bets in this race, and both Caleb and Matt, you guys went completely different directions. Actually, Matt, because you've had camera issues, and I think we've got them figured out, I'll let you go first because I think I've had the pretty one go first too much. Your best bet
Wait,
is...
whoa, wait, hold on.
Your best bet is actually the number 1 horse in this race.
Yes.
Forever Young. Talk to me.
I've been waiting for this horse to run back since the Kentucky Derby. I think, I forget where I saw it, but there was a stat on ground loss in that race. And I think that if you watch the Kentucky Derby, every horse that was finishing well had a trip along the rail for a majority of that race, right? There was a distinct rail bias during that trip. And the only horse that ran well in that race that was not on the rail for a part of that was Forever Young. I think that this horse is an absolute monster. I think this horse is primed. I like the layoff. I like the prep that it ran, just to come back here. I think this horse is absolutely loaded and is going to demolish this field. This horse has had sights set on this for a long time, and this is the one I want in here. And yeah, I think it's all systems go for me on Forever Young. So
it was funny. I saw David Barista, artist David Barista post Team Japan, but right before that he typed Ushba. So I think he likes Ushba Tesoro in here. But Caleb, so right. He likes the 1 horse. You went on the complete opposite side of the post position, and granted, maybe you kind of made this decision, I think, before you saw the post positions, but then you were like, you know what, I'm sticking with my guns, and you went to 14 next.
That's right. I will say that my second pick in this race is Forever Young, so I do agree with Matt. I think he's a very likely winner, and he drew well for the race. My best bet in here was Next. I think if you just look at what this horse has done, the body of work, and I don't care who he beat. You win by 22 lengths, 25 lengths, 10 lengths, 11 lengths. I don't care if you beat, Mark and Josh in a horse suit. This horse is extremely talented. He has such a high cruising speed, just naturally. I mean, he just drags his rider to the front. And yeah, I get the hesitancy here. He's going to be faced with fractions he has not seen in a long time. He is probably not going to go 49 and change to the half here, and he's probably going one less turn than he's used to going. But honestly, this is not a strong classic field. It's a competitive field, depending what you think of some of the invaders. But I respect Forever Young. I will not have City of Troy on a single ticket. I don't think that's a dirt horse, and he can beat me as the favorite, or really at any price he can beat me. And Fierceness, of the short prices, yeah, he could win, but I've just never been able to really trust him. I mean, because he put 2 good races in a row together, are we now supposed to just think he's past all of the issues where he's, kind of flopped as mega chalk in the past? And for me, I just can't quite get there at that price. He did draw well, I will say that. But for me, I mean, Next just brings such a dominant body of work into this race. And it's a race that doesn't really have a lot of speed in it. Arthur's Ride seems to be the need to lead in the race. I do expect him to go out there and set the pace. And while the 14 post is never ideal, I do think that Next is going to be able to, get up there and probably settle in somewhere, second to fourth in that kind of tracking position where he likes to be. He may have to go a little faster than he's used to doing it, but it isn't like you can be worried about the stamina. So for me, in a race where I have a lot of questions about the American runners, I have zero interest in City of Troy. I think it's Next or a Japanese runner. And, I'm going to go with Next in here.
Mark, where did you land?
Let me click on my name and then just call me because you're like, yeah, Mark, sure.
Well,
you're
nothing
good
popped
enough.
up when I clicked on you.
I mean, I think I do very much agree with Caleb. I like Next in here. I think he's probably the coolest horse in training right now. We got to see him at Saratoga, albeit he won by 22 lengths. So it was sort of Next, and then you waited 3 minutes, and then everybody else came by. But, he is just a really, really cool horse. He's a cool story. I really wish they ran him in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, so I'd know a little bit more about how he would handle a mile and a quarter with a little bit more of a conventional pace dynamic in front of him. But I think he's going to be fine. So I think Next is an extremely interesting player in here. The other horses that I was a little bit interested in, I know Caleb kind of dunked all over City of Troy. I think City of Troy is an actually really interesting outsider. We've seen European turf horses ship to the Breeders' Cup and go into the Classic on dirt and do okay. That's happened before.
Have we? Name one.
I said...
Didn't Giants Causeway finish second or third?
Yeah, he finished his second or third. The horse I
Wait
was
a
thinking
minute.
was the...
Josh with a racing fact prior to 2018.
That
I'm
is
happy we
true.
were all sitting down for that
Dude,
one.
Look, if City of Troy wins, I'm going to scream as loud as possible. And City of Troy wins it for the UK in wherever I'm at, and I just want to see all the dirty looks I get.
Yeah, Saki was the horse that I was going with, who ran second to Tiz Now. They've come
Won it
over
for
and-
America, apparently.
twice even. No, I think that, I think he can make the transition. He's got the pedigree. I know everybody's talking about will he handle dirt or not. He's clearly the classiest horse in the field. And I have no issues with him. I will have Fierceness on nothing. I still think Fierceness is a head case. And I'm just going to keep fading Fierceness and lighting money on fire. And I'm okay with that. But the other horse I don't think anybody else is probably going to talk about, and that's Arthur's Ride. And I know you guys know. Oh, okay. I get answer approval. I think with Arthur's Ride, there's an argument to be made that he ran a huge effort in the Whitney and then just bounced to the moon in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And he is a horse that should handle what normally works at Del Mar, which is very forwardly placed with a lot of speed. And if he runs back to that Whitney, he's a major player in here, and he's going to be on the front end. And I think another thing is, I know Fierceness probably goes off your favorite. Fierceness is going to take a lot of money. One thing we've never seen out of Fierceness is how does he run versus older horses? We at least know with Arthur's Ride how he can handle older horses. So, of the speedballs of the horses that are going to be on the front end, I think he's a really, really interesting player, and I do think he kind of gets lost somewhat in this, in this race.
Mark, I could kiss you right now because you just made all of my points for me.
Let's don't. No.
The one thing you did not do that I know Josh is eagerly waiting for is channel the late, great Harvey Pack and say the axiom that I want everyone to take to heart, which is Never bet a horse as the favorite doing something it's
Something new
never
for the
done
first time,
before.
yeah.
Well, luckily, the great actor Gregory Peck said, "Scout, trust your gut."
Okay.
Why I have City of Troy on top, but
Well,
continue.
Josh hates money. We have a Josh hates money sighting right here. If City of Troy wins, I lose. Has never run on dirt. Looks like a turf horse. I think they're running him in the Classic because he's just so egregiously talented not to. Fine. If Fierceness wins, I lose. Has never run against older horses. Comes out to Del Mar facing horses with more early speed than what he has. I think the post position actually helps him, but if Arthur's Ride clears him and throws some dirt in his face, I don't think that ends well for Fierceness. I've got 2 A's in here. I'm a Forever Young fan. I thought the comeback off the Kentucky Derby was very, very good. Comes in second off the bench, has been looking very, very good. There's nothing I hate about Forever Young in this spot. Arthur's Ride is my other A and was very nearly my long shot play of the Breeders' Cup. There are 2 horses in this field with buyer speed figures of 110 or higher. Fierceness is one, Arthur's Ride is the other. If this one runs back to the Whitney, he's a major player. And in that race, he paired a top effort from 3 back, where all he did was go 1.25 miles in 2 minutes and 4/5 while geared down the last 16th of a mile. This is a horse that if Del Mar is playing like the conveyor belt it was over the summer, if he makes the front end and you have opportunity to take in-play wagering, have some fun with that one. I'm drawing a line straight through the Jockey Club Gold Cup. I was there that day. He never once looked comfortable. Just throw that race clear on out. Give me Arthur's Ride at or near 15-1 any day of the week. There are a couple of horses in here that I do want to talk about at least. Let's not sleep on the Baffert runner. That's Newgate, horse number 13. This is a horse that has a win in Grade 1 company going 1.25 miles, and his last several works since coming back in the California Crown after that long break following the Dubai World Cup have been excellent.
Combatant also won that race, so let's calm down the Grade 1 Santa Anita handicap there.
So just to be clear, what you're telling me is Baffert and Dettori on a 20-1 shot with a win at this distance and a sparkling work tab does nothing for you?
I mean, I'm betting City of Troy, so clearly not.
I mean, I don't think Newgate wins, but if you're looking for an overlaid price to throw in underneath, I think you could do a lot worse. Is the outside post all that great? Not particularly, but it's 1.25 miles and there's a really long run into that first turn. Cobb, I'm not saying Newgate's winning. I have 2 A's. He's not one of them. Could I see this horse potentially clunking up for second or third at a big price, especially if the race falls apart up front? Sure.
I love the fact that someone would think that you're memeing at any point, because that's just not your game. That's my game.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought you were meaning when you picked City of Troy.
Which is how I landed on. Look, Andrew, I finally thought we were going to have a moment. After all the crap I gave you for Forte and Fierceness, I'm finally on the Fierceness train, and you jump off.
Yep.
God, honestly, I looked at the time form fix for this race, and unfortunately, I only came up with 3 horses that can win this race, and I feel sick to my stomach at the 3 horses that can win this race.
Wait, who's the chalk-eating weasel now?
This is a bad look, Josh.
There are 3 horses I think that can win this race: Fierceness, City of Troy, who obviously we've only seen these figures on turf, right? So we need these figures to come back well on dirt. We don't know. Looking overseas, apparently the overseas people do know, because this horse is what at this point 2-1 is what I'm seeing overseas, and then the horse that almost made me vomit, literally vomit, while I was recording with Matthew DeSantis was the 11.
Oh, no.
Sierra Leone.
No. Just no.
Dude.
Just light your money on fire.
The sick thing about Sierra Leone is Sierra Leone's only a couple of points off with the tops of some of these other horses. and this horse has steadily improved in every single start this year, and it makes me sick to my stomach. I hate this so much. This is the type of loser horse I hate betting, but I forgot who I was talking to, and maybe Matt, it might have actually been you, right? Once you start talking about figures, looking at figures, and like believing figures, like you kind of got to bet the figures. And if you're betting time form figures, which I generally do, you kind of got to bet the 11 Sierra Leone, and it makes me sick. I hate it. I
I'm
hate
sorry,
this
I'm
horse.
laughing at Nick in the comments section. It's entirely possible because I was on him in the Travers. He had absolutely no excuses and was third best that day. I'm supposed to believe that he's going to turn the tide on Fierceness and everybody else at Del Mar of all places.
I hate it, right? I don't like it, but like if I'm going to believe time form figures and I'm going to bet time form figures, you gotta bet Sierra Leone. Like I'm sorry, like it. I really I hate it. Right? I do not like it whatsoever.
I hate it for you if that makes you feel any better.
Another horse that I think does kind of fit on time form figures is a long price, and I actually didn't have it written down anywhere. But the 6 Derma Sotogake, I get it. This year, this horse is completely off form, right? Ran second in the Breeders' Cup Classic to White Barrio, who apparently is in the witness protection now. And this year has just not run well. But if you believe any of those figures from last year, most notably that Breeders' Cup figure, I think this horse is a big player in this race. Obviously, you're getting 20 to 1. You're getting Christophe Lemaire aboard again. You kind of got to wonder, though, what's happened the last 3 races. And honestly, I don't have a good answer. But once again, if you're betting figures and you see 20 to 1 on this horse, I think you kind of got to have a little bit of money on this horse. Probably kind of like a bit more of a long shot play. But yeah, I didn't like this race at all because I landed on the 2 top choices and Sierra Leone. And like anytime I was telling Matthew when DeSantis, when I did the video with him, I'm like, I hate this race because Sierra Leone does look okay in this race. And if that's the case, that means I hate the race.
So what I will say, and I just want to point this out, if you're using the other 2 Japanese horses in this race and the third one beats you, how horrible would that feel?
Hey, our buddy David Barista, he's all over. Oh man, where is that? He's all over Ushba. He literally only had one word. His one word was Ushba.
Hey,
I got bad news for you, Caleb. Stephen Fox asking, does Luan know where the finish line is at Del Mar? Because if he doesn't, you might be in trouble.
I mean, after his little oops, he went on a tear for like a week there, so I'll take my chances.
Jockey of the week.
Jockey of the
week, Luan Machado.
Oh man.
Hey Josh, to your figures point specifically the Sierra Leone figures. I would say, and Caleb and I have been talking this for a while now, some of the Saratoga figures seem like they are a little bit tall. So if you are betting time form on some of those time form figs from his last 3 at Saratoga, I think those are a little suspect. Just throwing it out there.
There's a reason there's a question mark next to it, and it's a C, right? I'm just saying, like, if the price is right, you're playing a pick and pray or something like that, you're looking for underneath horse. I mean, the thing is Sierra Leone is literally Tacitus 2.0. And there are not very many horses I've hated betting more than Tacitus, right? The horse that on figures looks like he should win and then just doesn't. And I feel like Sierra Leone's kind of that. Closing at Del Mar, I feel like you're asking a lot, right? I get it. I honestly think Fierceness is probably my top pick in this race. I made a joke that, and well, it wasn't really a joke. I was serious. I was very excited for Fierceness to bounce at the Travers so I could bet him in the Classic. And then what does that idiot horse do? He wins the Travers like an idiot, just ruining all my value. So, I'm kind of sticking to my guns there on the Fierceness train. But Oh man, chat's been bumping. Matthew DeSantis saying, "What's up, fellas? Looking forward to seeing a few of you at Del Mar in a couple of days." Yep, Matthew's already said, "Hey, Thursday we're gonna get together somewhere on track." Nick Seaver saying, "When David Aragona talks shit about your line, it is not a good line." Luckily, David Aragona is very professional and said things very, very well and succinctly, and I agree with him. I think it's tough. Nick Seaver's already talking about the line there. Sixer mentioned the only 3-year-olds that have won this race have been juiced up Baffords. Vino Rosa was 4 when he won.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Michael, who we haven't seen in a while here, he says maybe it'll be the switch to the pink outfit that'll get Sierra Leone over the top. And Nick Seaver saying that Andrew, you're talking Sierra Leone into the winner's circle. Mark was there with the assist.
Wouldn't be the first time, folks.
I would say I think the thing that'll get Sierra Leone back in the winner's circle is the cut back to a mile, which is what he really wants to run. But go on.
Yeah, but hey, I think this is what you guys were talking about. Nick Seaver saying, look at that whole day and the horses that have come back. Have any improved or matched their figures on Traverse Day? And that's a good point. That's probably kind of the deeper dive I'm gonna have to do on tomorrow and Thursday. Kind of looking at that. Mark, some guy named Mark Hampton just says nope. New person here, Private Ross says the Japanese horses have trouble coming out of American Gate. John White says. Also, the Japanese horses lose because of the beginning of the race. So, interesting. And Matthew saying Joel to the hoop. Who the hell is Joel on?
Senor Buscador.
Oh God,
is that Buscador's music?
That was another
What's
one.
he doing here?
That was another one I tried to make a case for, but I think Buscador wants a mile.
I would have actually liked him in the dirt mile a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm still aching because I needed him in the Pegasus World Cup, and I've watched that replay 15 times, and I have no idea how he doesn't get past National Treasure.
Matthew, Matt, I know we kind of took over. Is there any other horses you wanted to kind of highlight here?
No, I mean, I think Forever Young to me is far and away the best. I mean, I hate to say this, I don't disagree. If you're going to play an exacta, right, I would never key Sierra Leone on top at all. But that horse does like hitting the board for sure. That's that standard type of horse that you love to bet that never actually wins, but still value in that.
The Breeders' Cup, the filly and mare turf here. We got another grade 1 going 1 mile and 3/8. Mark, I'll let you go first because you have a best bet in this race here, and that's a 3 Cinderella's Dream. So why don't you go for it?
Yeah, I think with some of the defections in this race is came up a lot softer than it looked like probably 2 weeks ago. And you know, I think Cinderella's Dream is just a class of the field. Ever since she's come to the States, she's been extremely good. You know, both the Belmont and the Saratoga Oaks, I think, were very, very nice efforts. You know, she's not a kind of a one-trick pony. She has, you know, enough tactical speed to be involved, not let the race get too far away from her, and then just has a really devilish turn of foot. I think, you know, at least how I'm looking at the day, I think Cinderella's Dream is your, you know, probably most likely winner on Saturday, at least for me. And I think you're going to get some, you know, you're going to get a decent price here, just given the fact that there are other horses, there are other names in here that are going to distract people and to, take money, you know, with the names of horses like Warlike Goddess and a Didia in here and everybody else. So I think Cinderella's Dream is the best of what's here. And, you know, and I the other thing I kind of, you know, do like about her is, let me just make sure I'm saying this right. Yeah, she is a 3-year-old, you know, going versus a lot of these older horses. And she, in her pattern, if you look at it, her last 4 or 5 races, she's gotten a little faster every race. So I expect another small step forward from her. And I think she's going to be very, very, very tough here.
Yeah, and just to kind of be kind of short here, I agree with you, Mark. Cinderella's Dream is one of my A's. I think obviously in here with a very, very big shot. Overseas right now, I'm seeing like 3-1. I'm still seeing Warlike Goddess as the favorite, which kind of is boggling my mind. I don't want any part of Warlike Goddess in this race. But yeah, Cinderella's Dream looks like a little like around 3-1 is where you're getting. So I agree with you there. The other A I have is the 7 content, and not just because we create content, but I think if you cross a line, this is Andrew's favorite thing to do, right? And I think Gregory Peck loves this shit too, right? Is you cross a line through the soft races and the yielding races that are going, these route distances. Most notably, the races 3 and 4 back. You got to win in a second on good going. The 2 soft goings, you kind of toss that. Horse is going to get firm going here. So I think this is a horse that probably wants a firmer going and is going to get that in this spot. Gets Frankie Dettori aboard. So I kind of like content here on kind of a going type play. The only horse I have as a B, and maybe it's just very, very sentimental, is the 5 Didia. I think this is probably the best filly or mare turf horse that we have here in the U.S. going right now. Got an absolute criminal ride from Hector I. Barrios last time. He full middle initial on that one because it was just absolutely awful what he did. And I love Hector. I think he's a great rider. I don't know what the heck he was doing that last race. So Jose gets back aboard. And yeah, I think that Didia is in here with at least a decent enough shot. 12-1. I'm seeing 12-1 still overseas. So, I think we're going to get a pretty fair price on Didia. So I have Didia as my lone B in the spot, but I'm going to use the €2. I'm going to use the 7 content, and I'm going to use Mark's top pick here, the 3 Cinderella's Dream. Matt, I'm going to go to you. Where did you kind of land?
Yeah, I'm actually going to a horse that I've been against a lot of times for a number of reasons. I'm going to go with the 10 Moira as my top pick. I've made so many excuses of why I hate this horse. I keep saying, hey, this is a synth horse. It's probably could be the best synth horse of all time if she just ran on synth. I said she can't run off Lasix, and she's continued to prove me wrong and put up some really big efforts every time she goes out. And really, I think she's kind of primed for this race, right? I mean, you get Pratt aboard, which is a huge plus. I think the extra 1/8 of a mile really helps in this race too. And I just think she's put in some really, really good efforts. And to me, that's the value in here. Again, just a horse that continuously has kind of proved me wrong being against it. I think I'm finally on, right? And I think this is the time to kind of get there because I agree with a lot of what you said. Like more like Goddess, I don't want. I probably really don't want the price on Cinderella's Dream that you'll get. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I wanted to put most of my money. As far as a B, I do kind of like Anisette, to be honest. I do think stretching out, like if you want a horse that's 3 for 4 on Del Mar and is taken to the surface, I think that's one that kind of was intriguing at a price too. You look, obviously lost to Hang the Moon last time, but passed on the gallop out. So maybe that indicates, hey, Anisette may want the distance a little bit more than Hang the Moon will. Kind of going the full mile and 3/8 rather than a mile and a quarter. But, again, most of my money here, I think will be through Mora. And I know at least a couple of people will be mad that I'm finally on that horse, but yeah. Yeah.
Andrew?
I don't love anything in this particular race. The one thing that I find sort of interesting is a horse from a circuit where I don't usually like dramatic circuit moves going from one to another. Does anybody go with Full Count Felicia early on? I'm not saying she'll get the mile in 3/8, but I also don't think there's any other speed in this race. And I see a Rod Ortiz Jr. up who darn near stole the Breeders' Cup Turf here a couple of years ago with Broom. I saw Ibeer in the comments section. That triggered me a little bit because I needed Broom badly that day, and Broom looked like a winner for 11.99999 furlongs. I don't know if there's any other speed in the race. And if that's the case, isn't there a chance Full Count Felicia gets loose? Last time out, she got loose in the EP Taylor going a mile and a quarter. The warning lights were on late, but nobody went with her. Literally, no one went with her. I don't like the fact that she's coming off of Lasix. You're right, Josh, but I look at a couple of races in 2023. She won a grade 3 with no Lasix at Gulfstream with a terrible trip, not at all doing what she wanted. I'm not necessarily saying this horse is a likely winner, but I do think if you're looking for a horse to potentially get the right trip, if Full Count Felicia goes out there and say 49 and change for the opening half, doesn't she have a chance to hang on for, if not all of it, maybe some of it?
I agree with you, Andrew. I completely agree. I mean, I watched that last race, and I don't know if maybe the riders, other than Kimura, just kind of misjudged the pace or were thinking she would come back. I'm not saying I love her on top, like you said, but I think she gets just absolutely loose out there and has proven she can steal a race. So I think she's an excellent kind of key for vertical bets, and might be one that I have on a ticket somewhere in a pick 5, although maybe not putting most of my money through her. Yeah, I completely agree. And I guess to kind of further that, maybe a bit, I guess I sort of split the difference between Andrew and Matt, because I do also, I'm probably like assistant treasurer of the Moira Hater fan club. So, I've never been a horse I've been a fan of, but, it's continued to kind of prove me wrong. And I just think that, her last race, like I said, Hernandez probably just kind of misjudged the pace a bit when, the long shot was 20 lengths clear and thought he'd be able to run her down and just couldn't quite do it. But, you get into rider upgrade to Pratt here, all the reasons Matt said. I do like Moira. I do like Content a little bit, who Josh talked about, throwing out some of those soft turf races. She did win a Group 1-3 back and beat Emily Upjohn, who would be a major player in here had she decided to go here instead of the turf. But for me, I don't know what to do with Cinderella's Dream. And I know that a few of y'all kind of are really, high on her, and I kind of get it. But, she's a 3-year-old who's never faced older. She's, visually she's looked fantastic. But on her numbers, I mean, she got a nice pace adjustment last time out, upgraded on time form from a 114 up to a 123 because she did close into a slow pace. But she has to stretch out 3/16 here, further than she's ever gone, facing older. I don't think that was a very strong field in the Saratoga Oaks Invitational. And on, other figures, she's slow. I mean, on thoroughgraphs, she's extremely slow. So as second choice in the 3-1 range, I think she's going to be an underlay. And am I willing to overlook the price just to get her on a ticket because I do respect what I've seen on video? I think that's going to be something I'll have to figure out by the weekend. But she's one that I'm kind of tossing and turning about a little bit.
Hey, Caleb, I got to ask, has Full Count Felicia ever won a race at a track you don't despise?
I don't despise Woodbine. I do despise Pimlico and Tampa, though. And
cool,
Laurel.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's close.
So, I mean, okay. Yeah, just saying.
Anything else on this race? All right. BC Sprint. I'll tell you right now, guys, this race is just absolutely a mess. This race is absolutely a mess because it had me starting to think like Chase. And once I start thinking like Chase, like I'm just like absolutely not, because
But
I
Face
think a
isn't in
closer
here.
might win this race. Yeah, I actually made a case. I was talking to Barry and I was like, "Hey, we might have to make a case for Thace at some point." And once you start doing that, and I think maybe a closer actually wins this sprint. And at Del Mar, I hate trying to make the case for a closer in the sprint. I kind of landed on the one Raging Torrent as kind of like, hey, he's inside drawn speed, so he's probably gonna get the best trip out of all the speed. And then I think outside of that, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna take the closers. I have Nakatomi at 6-1, and I have the 2 Gun Pilot, who I think has run some good races, albeit at 7 furlongs, not necessarily 6. So I'm a little curious where you guys landed, because I had a really, really hard time with this race. I landed on a lukewarm Raging Torrent on top, 2 closers as kind of Bs. So I don't know, Matt. I'll go to you first. Where did you kind of land?
I think Matt's
You're muted.
muted.
I know I do that to myself. I don't really have confidence in anyone here, so I don't really need to talk about this. I like the 10 Mulligan, if for no other reason than I think Pratt not riding for Brad Cox in a race like this is incredibly telling. I mean, Rodolphe Brisset has been lights out. Whether that can continue and translate to a BC, we'll see. But, it takes a lot for Pratt to hop onto a horse that's not Cox in a race like this, to me. So that might be telling, and I think it's probably worth the price you get. The other horse that I like, the 11 Skelly, may just be fast enough and clear here. I don't know who's riding, obviously, because there's a lot going on there, and I won't comment beyond that. But it's a legitimate question. Who's going to ride the horse?
I hate this horse. This is the softest ass horse ever to live, because I thought last year he was going to be a contender in the BC Sprint, and they just dodged all the big races. And then this year he comes up, and finally they're like, "Hey, we'll ride him. We'll put him in a G1." He loses the fucking Nakatomi of all horses.
Who you're using?
Who I'm using?
You're using.
Who I'm using, but.
That's fine that you're saying he's running at soft fields, but to me, this is a soft field, so it fits, right? So
Fair enough.
there you go.
Fair enough. Good point.
So those are the two that I'll go with. I mean, Remake is interesting to me too, but I don't know that I really want to bet a dirt closer in here. Yeah, and so that'll be most of where my money goes, but I don't think it's a huge race that I'm gonna, really go after.
Nick Seaver says straight no chaser gate to wire. Andrew, do you agree with him on that?
I think Straight No Chaser has a shot, but I'm looking at a couple of different things here. And Matt, you and I agree on Mulligan. I think Mulligan may well luck into that stalking trip a length or so off a very fast pace and have first run as the race falls apart, turning for home. I don't know if you want a closer going 6 furlongs at Del Mar. I do want a horse that doesn't need the lead. Mulligan has shown he doesn't need the lead in order to run well. I think he's going to sit a Dream Trip. He's been working very well. There's a lot to like in that particular spot. I will back Remake a little bit in here, and I'm surprised it's me backing the horse that's coming in from Korea after a win in a prep. But if you look at the race 3 starts ago, you see a horse that rallied to beat Skelly. You see a horse that last year ran up against the likes of Elite Power and Gunite and Sibelius and Switzerland. Those are good horses, and I'd argue that any one of those horses in their early 2023 forms would probably be favored in this particular race. Give me 10 and 9 here. Federal Judge and Straight No Chaser hit me as the exact same horse. They're either going to win by 5 or be absolutely nowhere, given the fact that both of them need the lead. I think Skelly is another that needs the lead and may well be faster. But I don't like the fact that the horse is starting to, at least to me, turn into a bit of a hanger. I can forgive running second to Nakatomi, who I think is a very cool horse that I've liked in a couple of spots where he's won and somehow not been favored. He's supposed to win last time out and didn't wind up doing that. I like the Asmussen work pattern. I'm not going to fault anybody for looking for a bit of a price because I do think he's the speed of the speed, but I think Mulligan is just a lot more logical sitting the trip that he's likely to sit, and give me a little bit of Remake as well, just in case everything completely falls apart.
Mark?
I see the race exactly the same as Matt. Mulligan, Skelly, I will probably be a little bit more interested in Mulligan just because I think he probably sits a better trip. But yeah, exactly the same way Matt sees it.
Caleb?
Yeah, I'm a little more probably aligned with Andrew, I think. I like Remake. I know closers, Del Mar, dirt, bad. If a closer is going to win a dirt sprint all weekend, it feels like it's this race. So I do like Remake. I mean, there's no Elite Powers or Gunites in here, and he's kept pretty good company most of his career. Mulligan is the forwardly placed horse who probably does get the best trip, outside post, doesn't quite need the lead, to Andrew's point. So those would be my top 2. And I will probably have actually Gunpilot on a ticket, who I don't think is a hopeless one-dimensional closer. I think he certainly can't keep up with the speeds, but will be within 3 or 4 lengths, I think. I thought his race at Churchill was really, really good. I think he just bounced in the True North, and then he got stuck on that, what I'm thinking is a dead rail on August 24th at Saratoga. Still ran admirably to get up for second there despite that. So he's one that, who else would you rather have in a Breeders' Cup race than Christian Torres? So he'll be on one of my tickets.
Exactly my thinking. All right. Race 11 here. We have the BC Mile. And Caleb, you got a long shot that you really like in this race in the number 8, More Than Looks.
Wait, he's not picking Chili Flag?
Don't say that too loud. Dad's in the room.
I've been sitting on that for 2 hours, Caleb.
Oh, I finally bet Chili Flag, I think last time or 2 times ago. And 2 times ago races when I bet Chili Flag into Diana. And that was the effort that I got. So I deserve it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I'll concede that I think it's very likely a European wins this race. I think Rama Tool and Diego Velasquez both come in here pretty strong. I'm not as high on Notable Speech or Porta Fortuna, but regardless, they hold a very strong hand in here. But More Than Looks, I think, is a horse that, in my opinion, is better than Carl Spackler. And I get it. He lost to Carl Spackler 3 times. I think Matt made a comment about that earlier with a Japanese runner, on the previous race. But I just think More Than Looks just doesn't have the tactical speed that Carl Spackler has, and has just been in some pretty disadvantaged race flow. I mean, in the last 2 starts, he's been trying to close into pretty slow fractions for the most part. I mean, 2 back, trying to close into 49-1 at Saratoga going a mile. And then last time it wasn't exactly, crawling, but it wasn't that quick for, how the Keeneland turf was playing. And, I just thought this horse was flying late. I mean, this horse has such a just incredible late kick. In my opinion, was, arguably best in that, Hall of Fame all the way back the previous time that he did lose to Carl Spackler yet again. So again, I think this is a horse that just needs some racing luck because of his style and the way that he does kind of run, having to do a lot in the lane. But he's one that I think he's the best American horse in here. And I think he's got a great shot to hit the board, if not maybe outright win. And if you're going to give me 20-1 or more on this horse, then yeah, I think this horse is a great bet to hit the board. Maybe not win, because I do think the Europeans are pretty tough, but I do like this horse underneath for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in real quick. I think Caleb mentioned the 2 horses that I probably like the most in here. The 4 Diego Velasquez is the European I want the most of. Obviously, he's coming in off of 2 straight wins. And, we've seen some of these horses that have been in some of Diego Velasquez's races come back and run pretty well. Mustasarev, obviously, or Mutasarev, sorry, coming back and winning a race. Mountain Bear, I think, came and ran like 2nd or 3rd, I think, in a race here in the U.S. So, yeah, I really like Diego Velasquez. I like the fact that Ryan Moore's staying the board for Aiden O'Brien. I think you're going to get a fair price on him. We talked a little bit off stream about Notable Speech and Porta Fortuna, that especially Porta Fortuna, who looks kind of slow for a horse that's won so much. So I think is a horse that needs to kind of take a step forward, I think, to be a player in here. Obviously, the form looks great. Looks to be the favorite overseas. Notable Speech also, taking a bunch of money. Notable Speech is probably the one I like a little bit more, just because you cross the line through that Longchamp race, and I think the form looks a little bit better. But I really like Carl Spackler. Of the Americans, I think this is probably their best shot at winning the Turf Mile in a while, since Uni in 2019. And I just think the tactical speed, very, 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 very dangerous, right? If there's not a lot of speed in front, I think is happy to go ahead and take the lead, and is probably going to sit second. The only other horse that I will briefly mention, and that's just because it's a 3 Cherry horse, and I'm sure me and Papa Knight are going to be all over this horse in the win pool here. But Goliad, right, who has wired 2 races at Kentucky Downs, obviously very, very speed favoring turf course there. But when you look through this field, this is a horse that has had success here at Del Mar. So, he's got a win 3 seconds in the 3rd. So, just kind of thinking, hey, maybe this is a horse that can get out there on the front end and maybe gets a little bit loose, and maybe no one catches him. I don't know. 20-1 in the morning line, you get Flavian Pratt getting aboard. There's a lot of things I like to see here, so I thought Goliad in here as kind of a seahorse. But those are the 3 I'm going to use. Mark, where did you land?
Yeah, I think you guys have kind of talked all the ones I'm gonna be most heavily on. But I think the horse I'm most interested in here is the 1 horse OTWL. This is a horse that's a fairly back into the 3-year-old season. There was a little bit of a layoff between Ascot and the Longchamp race, but the figure came back huge in the Longchamp race. So you have to kind of make an argument. Is that a thing of the horse just loved the softer going, or is it that a horse that needed a little break, stepping forward and really moving forward? And the turn of foot late in that race was extremely impressive. So I think I'm most interested in OTWL in here of all the Euros. But I could give a look to horses like Notable Speech or Diego Velasquez as well.
And then Michael Domable bringing up that 2 wins at Kentucky Downs cancels out that offer stat. So, hey, maybe we got that. Curtis Clark saying that Carl is parked in the parking lot getting a beer and a hot dog. Do you agree with him, Andrew?
I don't like Carl Spackler in this spot. I think that Goliad is significantly faster early on. I think there's other pace too. I don't think it's a case where Carl Spackler can simply be hustled out of the gate, sit a dream trip. He's got to be much the best in order to win this race. I am fading Carl Spackler in here. Notable Speech is a hot topic in the chat. And looking at the time form ratings, this is a horse that 2-back ran a 120, 4-back ran a 121. It's a good group of Euros. Those time form numbers are the 2 best of the Euros in this particular spot, with the exception of OTWL's last out run of a 121. That was going 7 furlongs, though. I'm just not sure he wants a 2-turn mile, or excuse me. I don't know if she wants a 1-turn mile, but she's a contender if she runs back to that race. The one that I do want to talk about, in addition to Notable Speech, who I think is the most logical winner in a wide open race. What the heck happened 2 starts ago for number 11, 10 Happy Rose, who won a Group 1 at odds of 207 to 1? Matt, you got anything here? I have absolutely no idea where that came from.
No, I there was probably only $414 in that pool, unfortunately, when it comes to Japan racing. So, hey, maybe one person had it. It was not me. But
hey, it might be a pool scoop. But yeah, I mean, I looked at that race and I saw the fact that the last race going 6 furlongs was obviously a prep. This horse is going to be an absolute ridiculous bomb, but I've seen worse bombs.
Matt?
Yeah, we talked about this race in the pre-entries, and I said Carl Spackler's chances were it needs to draw well, and it needs horses like Goliad to not draw in, and neither of those happened. So I think that kind of kills any chance I had of wanting to bet Carl Spackler in this race. I do think Notable Speech is far and away the best in here. I think, just looking at that race 2-back, the turn of foot is something to behold. I don't think he was pointed at that race at Longchamp. I don't think he took to the soft ground. I don't think either of those are a risk here, right? And so Notable Speech will be kind of my lone A. I do like Diego Velasquez. I do like More Than Looks as well. I agree with Caleb. I think the fact that, some speed drew in up front really helps bring More Than Looks back into this race. And if you get 20 to 1 on that horse, it's certainly a use for me.
I saw Curtis Clark saying he hasn't heard anyone talk about a horse that's 4 for 4 at Del Mar. I wonder if he's talking about the 9 Johannes, who's 1 for 1 at Del Mar, but has won the last 4 races in California. Any of you guys give a look at the 9 Johannes?
I respect the fact that that horse has talent. He's been beating absolutely no one.
Yeah, that was my take too. I don't think highly of California turf racing, and especially when you have the Europeans in town. I would need a price that I know I won't get. He could win, but it won't be with my money.
All right, we made it to the last race, the BC Dirt Mile. We're only 20 minutes over what I thought this would take, so honestly, I think we're doing pretty well. But Andrew, I'm going to let you go first here because you got a long shot in the number 7 Tumba Roomba that you like in the spot.
I will preface this by saying that if Del Mar is a conveyor belt, Saudi Crown probably wins from here to your house. Because I think Saudi Crown has one way of going. I think Florent Giroux has one instruction, and that is get out of the gate and quarter horse to the first turn. If speed is holding at Del Mar, I don't think Saudi Crown loses this race. But if we wind up getting a fair track at Del Mar and there is an absolute meltdown up front, Tumba Roomba has not been out of the exacta in 5 starts this year and has shown an ability to stalk behind horses. This is a runner that has tactical speed, but does not need the lead in order to run well. Has been running reasonably solid numbers and is a very consistent type of horse. If the early pace setters that need the lead start coming back, Tumbarumba could very well be in position to get first run on those horses with about 3/8 of a mile to go. Is that good enough to win? I'm not 100% sure about that, but I know this horse shouldn't be 30-1. Tumbarumba is going to be on all of my tickets for that scenario, for that reason, because while I respect a couple of horses that are likely to be running late, how much do you want a deep closer going that one-turn mile at Del Mar, or two-turn mile, excuse me, at Del Mar with that short run into the first turn is what I meant to say before I stumbled all over myself. I think Tumbarumba's got a big shot in here, and that horse is going to be on a lot of my tickets. 30-1 is just way too big a price on a horse that's shown on his best day he can be right there.
Yeah, I agree with you on Saudi Crown. That's my top pick in this race. If this track is playing remotely speed favoring, I think Saudi Crown is going to be tough to beat here on the rail with controlling speed. I will say the other horse I kind of gave a look to was the 12 Mufasa for Nacho Correas and Tyler Gaffleone. This is a horse with tactical speed, has won his last 2 races sitting just off, both on fast and on sloppy ground, including that grade 3 Vosburg, and beat a very, very good horse in Scotland and a very, very juiced horse in Repo Rocks two back. So, I think this is a horse with a bit of talent. Is tactical, and I think in this 2-turn mile, I think that's going to be important here. So I like the 12 Mufasa, have him as an A, and then I have the 1 Saudi Crown as kind of my other A in this spot. Caleb, where did you land?
When you picked that Sierra Leone earlier, you know how you felt when you picked that? That's kind of how I feel by picking post time in this race, because my God, the number of times I've picked this horse and Sheldon Russell found a way to lose has really just upset me. But, I just think that I see a lot of speed in the race. I get it. Saudi Crown, rail, and, speed. He's quick. I don't know what happened to Tio St. Dennis. I heard he may not get in the race based off of the vet not clearing him after he worked like 5 furlongs in like 6 minutes and 20 seconds or something like that. So I don't know what happened, but even so, I mean, you have a horse like Full Serrano, you have a horse like Pipeline, Sees the Gray has done his best work up front. Muth won't be far off of it. Yeah, I don't know. Even Mufasa. I mean, to me, I just thought there was a lot of speed. I was looking for more of an off the pace runner. And I don't think post time is, hopelessly one paced. I just think Sheldon Russell is not very good at riding horses. And, there was no excuse for him to lose to Messier back in the Westchester. And that's the one that really haunts me. But even beyond that, I mean, I thought he ran well while up against Racing Dynamics in both the Metropolitan and the Whitney. And then last time, I mean, against a cupcake field, he got the job done at odds of 1 to 1,000,000. But he's one who on Thorograph, I mean, has run pretty much exclusively negative figures all year. On time form, he's very consistently around that 120 mark. And I think he might get the pace setup he needs in here. I don't know if he's best at a 2-turn mile. I think that is the question. But I thought he was very formidable going 1.1 miles at Saratoga, over a muddy track against a speed bias track, to get third by Arthur's Ride, who some people like in the Classic. So to me, he's a pick that I feel gross about picking, but it's kind of a gross race. And I guess that's kind of how you have to hold your nose and close your eyes.
Is this the horse that Matthew DeSantis said that
Yes.
would win tons of times if Sheldon Russell didn't ride him like Secretariat?
Yes.
Yes, that would be the horse. Yeah.
Matt, where did you land?
Yeah, I actually like post time a fair bit, except for all the reasons that you just said, right? I think it's one of those horses that, has shown, despite the rides, to have really good fight for the line and have that nose for the wire. So, hey, maybe he puts it together. Sheldon Russell puts it together. Who knows, whoever needs to put it together to make this horse win. But yeah, I mean, I do like Saudi Crown, especially, I like the theory of Tio St. Denis as well. I think, those horses could theoretically go for the lead if Tio St. Denis is, who knows what's going on with that horse watching the works. But if that horse is fit, I think it has the ability to potentially send and make the lead. If it doesn't, this is Saudi Crown's race to lose, right? So, and again, talking about bad jocks, Florent Geroux could find a way to lose it too. So I don't really like this race all that much. The only other horse that I think might have a chance, one thing that I look for, right, especially at a mile, is horses tend to run better either around one turn or two turns, right? And so to me, I'm looking for a horse that has shown better around two turns than one. And the only horse that came up for me for that is Cagliostro, the 11. I don't know if this horse needs Lasix or what, there's a lot of question marks there, but it gets Jose aboard, same principle as last race with, Jose and Sherry, and she's been firing ridiculous. So I think at this price, it's enough of a chance where maybe you have to slot it in and just use it, right? Given those best races, I think have been around two turns. I don't know what this horse wants. I don't know if this horse can finish, but at 30-1, I think it's worth trying to find out.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it. I have a Lone A, and none of you guys have talked about the horse yet, so a little concerning. I'm sure going to get it dunked on, but my Lone A is domestic product, and as long as the track is playing fair, Chad Brown is on record saying that right now. Saying that domestic product is the best training horse he has right now, or the best horse in training he has right now. And, this again feels like one of these 3-year-olds who really, they finally figured out, what he is and what he wants to do. And, in his last couple, you've seen the figures really advance. He doesn't need to take much of a step forward off the last race of the Jerkins. And, again, it's more of a bias concern that if this track is playing as a merry-go-round, domestic product has no chance. But as long as the track is somewhat fair, I think domestic product is the horse to beat here.
All right, guys. Well, we made it. We made it through all the races in probably about 2 or 3 hours quicker than anybody thought. Guys, I appreciate all the comments. Chat was popping today. Shout out to Sixer, Curtis Clark, Nick Sievers, David Barista. Oh, man, we have so many people. Cobb, Sixer, Michael Domable. I saw Mark Capitan. No one cares about him. Who else do we see? I saw Evil Bob Dolan here, Matthew DeSantis, Private Rose. I mean, we got tons of guys in here, so I appreciate all the comments. We kind of speed run through this because normally we split this up 2 days, and normally it's just 3 or 4 of us, and we had 5 of us today. And Matt's camera didn't work for about half the stream, so we got through a lot here. So if you guys are at on track and want to say hi, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Obviously, I'm at Cherry Drank. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. Mark's at 2 Turns. We'll be on track Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that I know of. Andrew and Matt, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to jump on here. Andrew's obviously at Andrew Champagne, winnersandwhiners.com. And he's got all kinds of stuff there. Matt, obviously, at Slow and Steady. No shot in, no drinking champagne this week. But we'll probably put this up on the podcast feed. And Michael's going to be on track Friday and Saturday, so we have to make sure we go ahead and say hi to him. So it's going to be a fun week. I'm going to try I got some new equipment. I'm going to try and get some content out there for you guys, but we'll catch you guys later, and hopefully we're all making some money, and Caleb wins BCBC with Mark finishing a tired second.